Hello there, guys, and welcome back to my channel for our Transfer Deadline Day special. And as you can see, we're also joined by a very, very special guest, the first timer on the channel. I'm very, very glad to welcome and introduce Rob Bradley. You can see his name on the screen. You might know him as RJPJ. I always say RJPJ, and then there is that, which obviously it isn't, but you might know him off Twitter. Rob, thank you very much for joining me. You've just told me this is your 7th stream of the day. So again, very much appreciate you hopping on this one as well. But yeah, it's been a long day, but it's an exciting day. I mean, we'll talk about whether it's panic stations or not, but there's certainly a lot of things happening. So first and foremost, thank you for being here. But how's the day been for you so far, man?
Yeah, I mean, deadline day is always it's one of those days I look forward to with both excitement and also with a slight element of relief. Because it means that from a journalism point of view, it's all over for at least a few months. This year, I think it's been particularly long-winded because effectively the transfer window has started even earlier. It started in probably, you'd say, maybe mid-March with the sanctions and the race, for the new ownership. And subsequently, there's been quite a lot of, reporting on that to have needed to have been done. So I think it's been quite a tiring period, but at the same time, it's always exciting. And, inevitably there are one or two deals that come out of the woodwork on deadline day, deals that look like they were going to be completely dead, surprise transfers, deals breaking down, things that, you thought would never happen suddenly become possible. I've spoke to an agent who's moved a number of players on deadline day, and they've said that there are so many clubs that will refuse flat out to do business any other day than deadline day, purely because on deadline day, they think they can get the biggest squeeze from players. And it's much easier to get terms done when players suddenly become desperate. But conversely, it's a lot harder for clubs to agree deals. So you have that interesting sort of dichotomy. But yeah, no, it's always good fun. And I mean, I'm sure even now there will be something brewing away for at least one Premier League club that will come out of the woodwork and sort of surprise everyone.
There probably will be. There probably will. I mean, I was talking to some friends earlier, and I was like, "Well, 7 hours of transfer deadline days, like 7 normal days in the rest of the window. Like, It's crazy. It's honestly crazy what happens. It feels like FIFA career mode is actually real life. I'm not sure if you've ever played it, but when you click through the hours on the last day, that's what it feels like in real life. It's like it's just different. It's just different than any other day, and it is exciting. But it always depends on how your window has gone before deadline day, how, as a fan and also as a journalist, I suppose, you perceive the rest of the day, I would say. Of course, Chelsea have done a fair amount of business already with Fofana a few days ago announced. Of course, Cucurella, let me remember them all, Sterling and Koulibaly, of course, plus, Chukwuemeka and Casadei. I don't think I'm missing anyone. Oh, of course, Slonina, even though we loaned him back to Chicago Fire. But there has been a bit of stuff going on today. I mean, it's basically as everything but announced, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. And I'll hit you with the first question now. Because we've kind of had differing reports. David Ornstein has said 7.5 million euros. Fabrizio Romano has said 14 million euros, plus Marcos Alonso on each occasion. Do you happen to know what the transfer fee actually is? Because no one else seems to really be sure.
The fee I've been given was 9 million euros plus bonuses, which sounds closer to what Barcelona certainly wanted yesterday. There may have been a slight bit of reduction, so I'd be inclined to believe what David Ornstein has got from it. I think Fabrizio will have probably been fed it from Barcelona sources, who conveniently will have added all the add-ons in. And obviously from Chelsea sources, they will deduct all the add-ons because that's just how transfer reporting works. You saw it with the Cucurella fee, for example. You've seen it with the Fofana deal. The side that is selling always wants to make it sound like they got the best deal. The side that is buying makes it sound like they want to get the best deal. But the Aubameyang sort of fee, I don't think the fee is sort of that important as per se. It's more, I think, the big success from Chelsea is actually getting Alonso off the books. Because that was proving to be quite a difficult thing to do. He'd wanted to go for a while. Again, there's apparently personal sort of issues why he wants to go back to Spain. From Chelsea's point of view, they have amortized all the value on his deal. He came in for about 25 million way back when on deadline day in 2016. Now, oh God, that seems like a long time ago. And it sort of, you got to a point where the book value on Alonso has just effectively been superseded. So it's now got to a point, I think, where Chelsea are looking at it and saying, well, we need to move the player on. It's time to move him on. and it's also it's time to sort of, I think, move on. You've got Cucurella and Ben Chilwell at the club. Ian Maatson, obviously, the young Zach Sturge, who they brought in from Brighton, who I would say is a real coup for the academy. He's considered to be the best left back in that position in his age. And also Dylan Williams as well, who's very highly regarded. So I think it's a good deal for both parties. I don't think Chelsea can ask much more from Alonso. And I'll be curious to see how Aubameyang does. Proven goal scorer. I think we'll come back with a bit of a point to prove, especially after the way he left Arsenal. Obviously, the all or nothing doesn't necessarily paint him in the best light, but as someone did say to me from an editing point of view, Arsenal will have had the final say on that cut. They will have decided what gets shown and what doesn't get shown. And so ultimately, you will always see this from their perspective of how the deal went. I think, it's very much backing Thomas Tuchel. It's very much someone who is a goal scorer. And I think now the onus on Tuchel is saying, well, we've got you the goal scorer. We've got you Sterling, who was your first choice attacking target. We've got you Fofana, who was a top defensive target. We've got you a defensive midfielder in. Now it's your job to deliver on all of those, on everything you've sort of promised and to improve performances.
Absolutely. I mean, two questions on Aubameyang still before we move on to the next player. Number one, do you happen to know in what area his wages will be floating about in? Because that is obviously another question that always, influences fans' opinions of how good or how bad a transfer is, because he is 33 years old. It's not past his prime. Well, maybe past his prime, but not past it full stop.
Yeah.
But how much longer before he's past it do we have, I guess? And that's why people will probably wonder what the wages are.
Yeah, it's difficult. It's one of those, I understand the wages aren't enormous wages. He's on similar to what he was on at Barcelona. And it is more of a case, again, they've done it similar to the other deals in that it's heavily incentivized, that it's based on that if he scores X number of goals, if he, performs well enough, if Chelsea win X trophies, if he makes X number of appearances. That's more what the wage structure is based on, rather than it just being a flat-out high wage. Again, I think Chelsea are concerned by the nature of being stuck on players with big wages, reaching their sort of mid-30s and then, not having elsewhere to go to and being unable to be sold, but, needing to basically be released on free transfers. Now, we have seen an element of this ruthlessness from Todd Boehly in the last sort of few days, in that they've let Ross Barkley go on a free. They're effectively doing the same with Michy Batshuayi to Nottingham Forest. They've effectively just said they'll rescind the last year of his deal. Kennedy is sort of another one to consider. Someone's just said Fabrizio Romano said Zaha is coming too. I would be surprised if Zaha is coming, but
I would be surprised.
I would be very.
I'm just checking. I haven't seen him say it, unless he said it's on his own stream, which obviously we can't quite check right now. Can we?
Yeah, of course.
I'm sure someone will inform us if he actually did say that, and we will see some sort of tweets popping out. But yeah, there you go. I mean, it is a fair point. Obviously, it's important for people to remember the whole bonus-based wage structure that we're trying to move towards. Now, actually, I have a question on the basis of that, because obviously we've seen certain numbers reported on whether it's Koulibaly or Fofana, all these players whose wages have been reported upon. And my question then is, are these wages that are reported, are those the base salaries and we add the bonuses on top of those? Or are those salaries that are being reported including potential bonuses?
I'll just say a general rule of thumb. Make your life a lot easier for yourself. Don't worry about football finances. Football finances are one of the biggest minefields. If I knew enough about football finances, then I wouldn't be here. I'd be currently sat on a beach working as a consultant for football clubs. I can recommend people to, Kieran Maguire and also to the Swiss Ramble. I recommend direct financial questions to them. As for wages reporting, always take it with a little bit of a pinch of salt, because the only people that really actually know that is the number that's in the transfer matching system and the number in club contracts and in the actual, financial departments of clubs. Other than that, everything about wages is going to be sketchy. I've seen some numbers reported for players, and in some cases, this is further down the food chain, but I've known players in League One that people have claimed they're on so-and-so. I've known them well enough to be able to say, is there anything true on this? And they've just said to me, no, that's absolute nonsense. I wish I was getting paid that amount, but it's complete nonsense. So, yeah, it always just comes with a health warning. And that's why, from a journalist point of view, I would just be very happy if every single deal was announced with undisclosed fees. It would make life so much easier. But unfortunately, that's never going to happen.
Unfortunately not. Unfortunately. Just lastly, Aubameyang, what's actually your personal opinion on the transfer? Because unless I've mistaken something, you are a Chelsea fan. So not just from a journalist perspective, also from a fan's perspective. What do you think of the move? Like, ex-Arsenal captain, obviously you touched on it with the All or Nothing series. What do you think?
It's a difficult one. He's obviously a very, very good goal scorer. I'm not really sure that he's the long-term solution. In fact, I'm certainly not a long-term solution. But I think as a stopgap, maybe while you're trying to, I think Havertz has done okay as a false nine, but I don't think he's best positioned as a false nine. I think he's better when he plays up alongside someone, or alternatively plays in sort of behind them in that hole. When he was dropping into that pocket against Leicester, he was causing more damage there than he was when he was playing as that de facto 9. I also think it takes a bit of the pressure off Broja, because it means that Broja, you can sort of maybe bleed him in. And I think he's a good, as good a finisher as anyone to learn from. And also, I think from a, point of view in terms of backing the manager, you can quite clearly see this as a Tuchel signing. This is not the sort of signing, I think, under Roman Abramovich that would have been authorised, because there's very little to it, if no resale value. There's, not high wages, but there are significant wages involved in the deal. It seems to me that you probably look at this and say, yeah, I think this is going to be the sort of thing that really measures where Tuchel is this season. In that if Aubameyang does well, comes in, starts scoring, then I think Chelsea will see them start to improve. If Aubameyang comes in and struggles, then more questions will be asked to Thomas Tuchel, particularly from a recruitment POV.
100%. It's actually also interesting because so far this season, as much as we've struggled, the players that have looked good regardless are probably the new signing. So if anything, Todd Boehly is probably like, well, at least the players you've asked me to sign have played well, even if a lot of the others haven't. You mentioned Amanda Broja there. Because we're now signing Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, that doesn't change the fact that he will stay for the season, does it? Or at least until January, I suppose. Or is
I think certainly at least until January. Yeah. Okay. I think certainly at least until January. I can't see anything happening this late on. Certainly from Chelsea's point of view, they don't want to let him go. That's why they made it very close to not do a deal with Amanda Broja for West Ham when West Ham came knocking. Chelsea actually have been talking to his intermediaries initially about a new deal and trying to extend his contract. He's in a similar boat to the Mount and James situations where they want to offer new long-term contracts to show, that long-term pathway and build that long-term spine at the club.
Very good. Very interesting. I mean, it's going to be interesting how exactly Aubameyang and Havertz will be used anyway. Like, will it be a case of Aubameyang just benches Havertz now, or will a different place in the team be found for Havertz? Because I think people are thinking directly that Broja is now automatically third choice striker. I don't think it's quite as simple, personally. I mean, I could be wrong. That's just my personal opinion rather than any inside knowledge. But yeah, I guess we'll see. One other signing that's, again, not confirmed, but confirmed from all the reliable journalists out there, really. Denis Zakaria, whichever way you would like to pronounce him. Swiss international, of course. How old is he? 25, I'm pretty sure.
25, yeah.
Signing him on loan with an option to buy, I'm pretty sure, from Juventus. Now, that came out of nowhere. We attempted to sign Edson Alvarez from Ajax. That failed. We potentially attempted to sign Zangare from PSV Eindhoven. That seemed to have not worked out. And then in the end, we ended up with Denis Zakaria. Are you in the camp, which I potentially might sit in, where you're like, well, we've signed Saul 2.0? Or do you think this could hopefully end up better than Saul did a year ago?
I don't necessarily think it's Saul 2.0. Certainly, the first thing I would say is there have been a lot of players that have been at Juventus and struggled recently and then gone elsewhere, and people have been reminded what good players they are. Bentancur, Kulusevski, João Cancelo, all of them struggled at Juventus for a variety of reasons and have gone elsewhere and have played very, very well. Now, for Zakaria, which again, I have to thank my friend Nishal, who, being Swiss, he's jumping for joy on the fact Chelsea signing a Swiss player on the pronunciation. But I think certainly in this case, he is someone who Thomas Tuchel, again, knows from when he was in the Bundesliga, from when he was at Gladbach. He was a very, very good player at Borussia Mönchengladbach a few years ago, and indeed, he only sort of stopped playing for Gladbach because he got froze out by them because he wouldn't sign a new deal, and they wanted to try and, make money out of it. They wanted to try and get something done. So I think that, and obviously he went to Juventus on quite a cheap deal. It hasn't really worked out at Juventus, but again, Juventus's midfield, a lot of players at Juventus in the midfield position haven't really worked out in recent years. Again, Aaron Ramsey went there and struggled. Rabiot hasn't really ever hit the heights that people expected. Bentancur struggled after a promising start. So I think it's quite a difficult.
Aaron Ramsey, they had, and that didn't work out.
Exactly. Yeah, Aaron Ramsey, another one of them. Kulusevski, who they tried playing in central midfield and it didn't really sort of work out. So I think from that point of view, I think you can say that Zakaria is a interesting signing, Denis Zakaria, and I can see the merits of why we're going for him. Again, as I sort of revealed earlier on sort of Sign Down's page, he was recommended to the club by a former player that scouts for us, and he was third in the list behind Tiemoue, who obviously went to Real Madrid, and that wasn't ever going to happen at the price. The club should have got that done last summer, and the boat sailed. Then there was Alvarez, who I think the club might go back in for in January or maybe next summer.
Or regardless of signing Zakaria now.
Yeah, even with signing Zakaria now, because I think Zakaria he's one of those signings, a low risk, high reward signing, in that if he does well, you maybe have a cheaper option to buy him. You can maybe negotiate something down. You can maybe even bring him in and sort of see how he does. Someone says here, Cuadrado was a Chelsea reject who settled in nicely at Juve. Yeah, it can go both ways. You make a fair point. But I think certainly for Zakaria, you're looking at it as sort of a bit of a stopgap and also working on the basis that Chelsea, next year, they know, in theory, at this moment in time, you've got at least three midfielders leaving the club now, and you've got Zakaria, assuming his loan isn't made permanent, Jorginho and Conte, who are all effectively going to be going. So it maybe gives you 1 year to buy time. Now, once you've got the new director of football in place and you start actually, scouting and seeing what you can do. I'm a bit biased. I used to really, really like Zakaria when he was at Gladbach. There are tweets back from 2020 when I was talking to one of my data analytics friends and asked him to do an analytics point like that because I could. But it was interesting to see that I think there was something that could be sorted, really, I suppose. This is someone asking what year, 2027. But I think it was quite interesting that Chelsea did still move for someone. Clearly, they wanted to get a midfielder over the line, and I was told this all window they wanted to try and get something over the line.
Let me actually jump in there and add a question to that, because you just mentioned in terms of DM targets that we had, Tiemoue, Alvarez, and Zakaria. But we seemingly only tried to target Alvarez and Zakaria, unless obviously it happened before and it just wasn't reported upon, since our defeat against Southampton. Now, is it a kind of a reaction to what happened there, plus Loftus-Cheek picking up the injury as well? Or is it actually a case of that we wanted these players properly? Yeah,
a mix of that. I think it's more also the fact that Chelsea needed to clear a bit of the logjam. They needed to get Ross Barkley out. They needed to sort out the situation with Billy Gilmour. They needed to sort out Ethan Ampadu's sort of role. They needed to work out exactly what was going to happen this season with Conor Gallagher. And now that they've sort of got all of that done and they've sort of sorted all of those different things out, they're now in a position where they can say, okay, we now need X number of players at this moment in time. Now, I think with Zakaria coming in for a 1 year option, you effectively are now postponing sorting out the midfield until next summer. But it does now mean there's a greater urgency. That said, if he does well for the season, at the end of the year, you've got an easy £30 solution, not £30 solution, £30 million solution.
But, close enough in nowadays market.
Yeah, that's saying in this market, that'd be an absolute steal. But you've got a £30 million solution that maybe can come sort of straight in. And even if, he proves to be a valuable squad player, 30 million in this market is not really that much for a 26-year-old solid squad player, with how crazy the sort of market is going.
Absolutely. Now, my personal concern about Zakaria is, and I'm not an expert on him, I've watched him definitely more when he was at Borussia Mönchengladbach than I did now when he was at Juve. But I swear at Juve, he wasn't really used as a six, because the only time I've ever seen anything from him at Juve was when he was scoring goals, running around the pitch like I would assume a number 8 does. I mean, again, I didn't pay too much close attention to what exact positions he took up. But also at Gladbach, I would have never described him as like a proper DM. I would have always more seen him as a little bit like a Kante that has an engine in him, that can tackle, that will run around with the ball, without the ball, rather than being like a sitting 6. And from my perspective, the sitting six is the part that we're missing. Not because of the other players we have. Well, Kante, even though he's mostly injured, we still have Kante. We have Conor Gallagher, who in Thomas Tuchel's opinion is somewhat similar. Kovacic, when he's fit, plays that position regardless. So that's why the Alvarez target made more sense to me with what I thought we still needed than Zakaria. So that's why I'm a little bit hesitant in terms of getting excited about him. In my opinion, there's no doubt that he's a good player. How it will turn out, we'll have to wait and see. But what I'm not sure about is whether he was the type of player that we needed. What do you think about that? Do you think he's a proper DM, or do you also see him as a bit more Kante style player?
I think to be honest, he can play both, and I've seen him play both in those roles at Gladbach. I would say that I think probably he's better suited if you give him that more freer ability to roam. But if we're assuming at the moment, and I certainly think this will be the case until Conte is fully fit again, that they're going to probably be playing the 3-4-3, and I think we're going to keep using that for the solidity that it does offer, because ultimately we look a more balanced side and a better fit of a side in the 3-4-3. I think he probably suits better alongside someone like Kovacic because he's got such an engine in him, but he also is a very tough tackler. He does tackle and read the game very well. He can intercept very well. Again, I'd rather have seen, my biggest concern today was that Chelsea ended up selling Gilmour, letting Ampadu go and not bringing someone in. So I think the fact that, anyone has sort of come in, I have to view it as something of a success. It's not obviously the player that I necessarily wanted. For reference's sort of sake, again, I'm very much in the camp of next time Chelsea should go all out for Declan Rice. But that, is more of a case of that sort of personal preference. I think that Chelsea are now, they've got a good stopgap solution for a year while they work out exactly what they want to do.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we'll just have to wait and see how it works out, I suppose, like you say. It is a bit of a stopgap option. I think everyone was aware of that. As soon as we obviously made an offer for him to sign him on loan, it was never going to be like, oh yeah, this is our new star man midfielder. I don't think anyone was fooled into that anyway. But still, it's better than no one, I suppose. At least he's fit. Now, one last thing to touch on Zakaria before we move on is the reports of him apparently being so very injury prone. Now, of course, he had a very bad knee injury towards the end of the 1920 season, which lasted into the 2021 season. And then last season did have a few muscle problems, like on 4 occasions, missed a few games.
Yeah.
But is one season of a few muscle injuries enough to call someone injury prone? Like, for me, you need to have that for 2 seasons or more to be like, do you know what I mean? No. To be properly injury prone.
No, exactly that. I've worked on the basis that, again, Nishal did a very good thread on this, sort of discussing whether he really was injury prone and sort of busting the myth of it. I think that he isn't. I look at the numbers and they're fairly standard for a sort of midfielder. People do point to the fact he's not played a lot in the last couple of seasons, which is fair enough. But that's more due to being the fact, A, Juventus have had an awful lot of midfielders on the books. And number 2, before that, at Gladbach froze him out for 6 months effectively because they wanted him to sign a new deal. He wouldn't sign one, and so they sold him on the cheap. I don't think it's fair to call him injury prone. Obviously, I think at this moment in time, we'll probably look at this as more of a stopgap signing, like I've said, while they try and get Kante and Kovacic back to full fitness. But again, obviously, we don't really know at the moment until he kicks the ball for us how he's going to do. For all we know, in a couple of weeks' time, Zakaria might be the first name on the team sheet because of how well sort of Denis Zakaria is playing. He might be, come in and be absolutely excellent. He might come in and be Saul or Bakayoko 2.0. But I think the big thing for Chelsea is it's not a permanent deal and there's no obligation. There's only an option to buy. So it's sort of low risk, high reward.
There you go. And just lastly on that one, obviously, we did sign Saul on a similar basis last year when it was a loan with an option to buy at the end of it, which we didn't take up in the end, understandably, considering he barely played all season. But he was actually on pretty steep wages because that was just his wages from Atletico, and we obviously covered all of them. We will now also cover all of Zakaria's wages, but are they anywhere near as high as Saul's, or are they much more like, if you don't know, fair enough, of course, but if you do know, are they much more reasonable? Because Saul was like on over 200k, even though we barely used him all season, and we still had to pay him that, of course.
Yeah, I don't think realistically that it's any of that is sort of that important. But I think it's more of a case that I believe Chelsea are paying the wages in this deal, but I don't think he's on huge wages at Juventus because I don't think he's not one of those players who's particularly high paid at Juventus.
Fair enough. Fair enough. And then moving on to the last potential incoming. Now, I'm not sure how much you can say and how much there is to say as of right now, but we have certainly been linked to Memphis Depay, another Barcelona player, another Barcelona forward, who could potentially become a free agent just because Barcelona might cut ties like we are doing with Michy Batshuayi right now and still giving him away anyway, but it's making him a free agent first and then letting him go. But as you just explained to me before we went live, that actually has financial reasons. What's the latest to Memphis Depay? The number one, and number two, you can say.
It's difficult to do, the Depay deal. It's hard to... Chelsea are interested in the deal. They are sort of keen on if they can get something done, the free transfer. They view Depay as a good player and potentially come in. They need to get someone out.
Oh, mate, you're covering your mic, I think, with your finger. Oh. There you go. Yeah, all good again.
Is that better? The squad registration, they need to get someone out before bringing someone in. Now, obviously, there is still time. It would probably have to be a loan deal. Late on, there are players that want to go, but it's going to be tricky. I think, in the next hour, we will know whether this is probably going to be feasible. At this moment in time, I would say don't get your hopes up too much.
Okay.
But if Chelsea think they can get it done, they do have the option of that 2-hour extension. They do have the option of a deal sheet. There are ways that you can give yourself leverage and buy yourself some time, but I think it's unlikely at this moment in time.
But you still don't see it as a possibility that agreements are found, but no papers are signed, because if there's the paper signed to make him a free agent, whether we then register him tomorrow or today doesn't really make a difference at that point. Or is even that few hours difference between today and tomorrow as a free agent still a difference financially for Barcelona?
Yeah, I don't think Barcelona won't release the player from the contract unless they know he's definitely going somewhere. They just won't do it. It won't benefit them because then they can't do the book value. As I've said, they can't remove it at the book value. They have to do it as a termination. And they also, I believe if he transfers today, they also can take him out of the squad and have a squad registration spot. Whereas if they do it tomorrow, they can't have an extra registration spot.
Okay, I see. Fair enough. Well, let's see. I personally would be quite a fan of Memphis Depay. Now, I understand why a lot of Premier League fans maybe would not, because most of what they've seen of him was at Manchester United, which obviously really didn't work out for him. But what I've seen from him at Lyon, also what I've seen from him at Barcelona in his relatively brief spell, and what I've seen for the Dutch national team, there's a very good player in there. I think maybe United just came a bit too early for him, a bit like Wilfried Zaha. People would jump on the chance to sign Wilfried Zaha. He was at Man United and flopped. But for some reason, it's a problem for Depay, but it's not a problem with Zaha, which is just shows you how fans' minds work, unfortunately. But hey, we're going to have to live with that. But I would be a fan. Would you like to see Depay join Chelsea, or are you more on the hesitant side of things?
I have got to say that I really don't like Memphis Depay. I think he's overrated. I think he doesn't work hard enough. There were issues from his time at Manchester United regarding lack of effort and application. He didn't settle very well in England. Obviously, now he's a lot older and he has grown up. The last player I gave, a similar cold shoulder to when they first joined was Cesc Fabregas, and obviously he turned out to be brilliant. So I'm not going to say that, me saying all of this means that, they're going to doom to fail. Like, I am completely fallible in my own transfers. But I don't think it's the sort of signing that I look at and think, yes, that's someone who Thomas Tuchel wants. Yes, that's someone who Thomas Tuchel thinks is really, a good signing. Someone says about buying a lot of other clubs' leftovers. I can see why you maybe would take that approach, but at the same time, if you think about it, a few windows ago, Salah and De Bruyne were our leftovers. This window, Billy Gilmour's been one of our leftovers, and that will turn out to be a very good signing. I think it's sort of one of those things where you don't really need to worry too much about where players come in from. It's sort of more of a case of when they come in, how they do.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Just lastly, before I let you go, because I know you've been on a lot of streams and stuff, outgoings. You touched on Billy Gilmour there. I'll just ask it as simply as I can. Is there a buyback clause? Because if there's not, I think this £9 million is the most ridiculous transfer fee I might have ever seen.
I'm afraid you're going to have to feel it's a ridiculous transfer fee. I understand there's not. I believe there is a sell-on clause in the deal, but the issue that Chelsea had from their perspective is he'd come off a poor loan spell. It became very, very clear he didn't have a future at the club. That was apparent as soon as he signed that 1-year extension. That was just purely to protect value. And Thomas Tuchel was very honest to him and said, I don't see a place of you in my plans. Made it very clear he was have to sell. Todd Boehly was a bit more reluctant to agree to a sale, but Gilmour himself pushed for it. And the club won't stand in the way of players if they ask to leave. They have never taken that approach. So, yeah, it sort of is one of those sort of things where I wouldn't, I wouldn't think too much into it. I think he's going to still be a tremendous player. I think he's going to still be a brilliant, brilliant footballer. But I sadly just, think it will be elsewhere than Chelsea and maybe on another manager in another sort of world. At this point, Billy Gilmour is starting on a regular basis for us. But I think at this moment in time, and I sort of said this playing devil's advocate, if Chelsea had brought Gilmour back into the fold and sold Gallagher, I think it would have been a bad message to show to loanees because it would say you can have a poor loan spell, we'll still give you a chance, and at the same time you can have a good loan spell, but we won't give you a chance.
I do understand that. It's less. I have less of an issue with selling him in the first. I mean, I do to some extent, but if the manager doesn't want to use him, then that's what needs to happen. But the transfer fee is what confuses me because we paid more for Cesare Casadei, who's never played a professional game of football. I don't understand the difference of valuations. Of course, we pay what we pay and Brighton pay what they pay. I understand it's two different entities valuating a player. I get it, but still, it's just when you compare it, I'm like, how? How have we only got 9 million?
Yeah, as I've already said to people, I think that this is, players are worth however much anyone wants to pay for them. And in this case, I think Brighton have got a very good deal with Billy Gilmour. But I think it's ultimately due to the fact that the situation has meant they can get a very good deal. And Brighton themselves have good negotiators. They have quite a good relationship with Chelsea, ironically, on sort of a number of things, including the Cucurella sort of deal. Again, I'm told that negotiations went along very, very smoothly between both sides. So, yeah, it'll be fascinating to see how Gilmour does under one of the best managers, I think, in the league. Obviously linked up with Tariq Lamptey again. And, I think he'll go on and be a real success. So I can only wish him the best of luck with the rest of his career. To me, the big sort of litmus test isn't how many Cobham graduates make it at Chelsea. It's how many of them make it in the top flight of professional football, whether that's in the Premier League, the Bundesliga, Serie A, elsewhere, the French League, Portuguese League, etc. To me, every single one of those is a success story that should be celebrated, even if it necessarily isn't at Chelsea.
Fair enough. Fair. If you're really into the academy, I think that's a very honourable take to, kind of side to sit on.
My view on it is thus that, there are thousands of players that come into football academies every single year. A very small fraction of those make it at the very, very, very top. Each one of those, in theory, you want them at some point to go down the food chain gradually until they find whatever their level is, and you want them to keep playing at that level and stay at that level and jump up from that level and move back up the food chain. You never want people just to drop completely out of the food chain altogether. And I've spoken to people that, have been in the academies and have dropped out the food chain and have dropped out, and they've been in very dark places and difficult places because the dream dies. And that's ultimately the thing that, to me, the big litmus test is that the more players you can get out there playing at a pro level from the academy, that's another one that you can say, even if, they come into the academy and say, okay, you may not make it at Chelsea, but you can go ahead and have a very good career in, say, the second tier in England or the top tier in Germany, or you can go and be a good player in France. And to me, that's the sort of more important thing, as per se.
There you go. Fair play. Slightly, depressing point to end on as we're talking about Billy Gilmour unfortunately leaving Chelsea. But hey, here we are. Rob, I very much appreciate you coming on. Ladies and gentlemen watching, please do follow Rob on his Twitter. It's linked down in the description. And follow him for future transfer news and updates and all sorts of other pieces of content. But yeah, Rob, thank you very much for coming on. Appreciate it a lot. Have a good night and a good rest of the transfer deadline day. Let's see if we get the pie done, I suppose.
Yeah, and I will remind people now that it's already just 122 days until the January window opens. So get the calendars counting down.
There you go. Cheers, Rob. I'll see you soon.
Nice. Yeah, bye.
And the smoothest transition in history of streaming. We are joined from Rob Moving on to CFC, Pies and Con CFC with their lovely CFCs in their names. Boys, thank you very much for joining me. Sorry that I kept you waiting for a second there, but I was like, if I bring you in before Rob leaves, then that just makes the whole process of me getting to talk to you before he's done saying everything I want him to say just take longer. So I thought, okay, wait, and then we're getting him out and you guys in. Boys, I'll start with you, Con, because you were here even before Pies. Well, sorry, Pies. First of all, thank you for being here, like I say. What you feeling like? It's transfer deadline day. Chelsea are going absolutely mental. We're signing players, selling players, loaning players, all sorts of different kinds of crazy things. But how happy are we with them? Con, I'll start with Zakaria and I'll take that to Pi straight after you as well. What do you make of that one? We'll talk about Aubameyang after that because we've all given our thoughts over the last 2 weeks on that anyway. But Zakaria came out of nowhere and all of a sudden, we already have him.
With Zakaria, so I took a nap after, the Alvarez wasn't coming as like he had to stay. I took a nap because I was like, I can't be bothered, man. And then I woke up and I missed so much stuff. Zakaria, I'm not going to lie, I like the player. I do. I was a big fan of him at Mönchengladbach. I actually wanted him to come to Chelsea from Mönchengladbach. And then went to Juve, so I was like, I hate when players go to Juve in this modern day. I think that club ruins players. So I'm excited to see him. If he can stay fit, bro, I think that's a really, really smart signing from us. We didn't panic buy. We didn't drop 30 M's on, Douglas Luiz from Aston Villa or something like that. It's pretty smart as a loan with an option of 30 million. People comparing it to Saul. No, they're different players. Don't do that. And let's not be hypocrites, man. We wanted De Ligt, even though he hasn't been that great at Juve, We wanted him for how much money? So give him a chance at least. Give him a chance at least is all I ask. I promise you he might just be better than what you think.
You promised us that he might be better. Great promise, God. I do see what you're saying, though. And I agree. Like, as much as I was, for example, very critical of our idea of ever entertaining signing Anthony Gordon, as soon as we would have signed him, I would have been like, okay, well, let's give him a chance. I might be wrong. And that's the approach that I think we should all be taking up with Zakaria now. Just because, and I understand the comparison to Saul. I just asked Rob whether, he understands the comparison basically, because we got both unknown with an option to buy, which with Saul we didn't take up. With Zakaria, if I'm honest, I think we probably won't take up. But that doesn't necessarily mean he won't be good. He could be good, I guess. My only concern is that I don't think he's a proper 6. And I think the part we're missing is a proper 6. I see him as more of a Kante style player. And I'm like, well, that's where we have 5 of, not like Kante, but for that position that Kante is filling. While we only have Jorginho for the role that Jorginho is supposed to have, the guy that sits all the time. And that's why I'm a little bit unsure, if I'm honest, about what to expect from Zakaria. But Pies, and your expert is also already here. I will bring him in just a second. But let me get to you, Pies. So finally, you speak as well. Very sorry that you had to wait for so long, bro. But your thoughts on Zakaria, Denis Zakaria, 25, from Switzerland. My girlfriend will be very happy because obviously she's Swiss. But are you sold on it, or are you a little bit hesitant on the signature?
Straight off the bat, I'm a little bit hesitant, but to be honest with you, I'm not going to come on here and act like I'm an expert on Zakaria. Or Zakaria, I'm not sure exactly how you say his name. I've always said Zakaria, but it might be Zakaria. Yeah, I mean, it's just, I don't know. I've been speaking to a few Italian experts this afternoon. A couple of people had on my podcast, 4 Italian people, when I was talking to them about the Koulibaly deal. And they did say is more of like what you said, kind of like a box-to-box player instead of a defensive-minded midfielder, but he can do both. They said that Allegri criticised him for having a lack of quality, hence why he didn't play so many games for Juventus. They did say he's injury-prone as well, but they said, it's not really much of a risk taking him on loan, but they do feel like it's a bit of a panic buy from Chelsea, just to get a body in midfield. So I don't know. We'll see. I'm not too keen on it, but hopefully, as I said on my Twitter, it can come good. It's a low risk signing. So no one's really got high expectations for him. I mean, everyone's just been slandering the guy on Twitter this afternoon, saying he's shit and rubbish and stuff. So, even if he's somewhat decent and can fill a rotational gap, can play as a 6 and be more defensive minded than maybe a Jorginho, offer that bit more physicality, then it might be a good deal. We'll see.
We will see. I mean, one thing that should be mentioned, Rob just told me. Now, obviously, that's Rob's information. Who knows? Well, he will, I'm sure, say it's true, but maybe some other people will say it's not true. Now, he told me that going into the window, we had kind of, in terms of order of targets we had for midfield, even if we didn't necessarily chase it. Well, top of that was Germany, but we all knew that was never happening this summer. Either it was last summer and we bottled that, or it was never. Next on our list was Edson Alvarez from Ajax, who we obviously tried to sign yesterday, or today, I guess. And then third on our list, according to Rob, was apparently Denis Zakaria. Now, I don't know how true that is. I don't know what exactly that means, considering we only tried to sign any of them on August 31st. If I'm honest, doesn't sound like they were on any important list, but they were on a list, I guess. So, yeah, him being injury prone, I personally would be a little bit reluctant to just throw that trait at him, because last season he had 4 muscle injuries, but before that he didn't actually have that many injuries. He had one really bad knee injury, but that can happen. You don't get a really bad knee injury because you're injury prone or you're not. It happens. Like, it's unlucky, right? After that, last season he had 4 minor muscle injury problems. But 1 year of muscle injury problems is not enough, in my opinion, to call someone injury prone. I think you need more than 1 year for me to call someone injury prone. Don't you agree?
I'd prefer we sign someone with a clean injury record, to be fair, or someone that doesn't have muscle injuries. The people I was talking to as well were saying he has like a high intensity game, hence why he does pick up these muscle injuries. And I just think this guy sounds exactly like Kante. With a high intensity,
Kante at
running
25
and everything.
wasn't injured much, so we can hope.
Yeah, I mean, I know people are trying to find positives out of the deal. He's not who I wanted, to be honest with you, but yeah, we'll see what happens. I don't think it's an amazing signing, to be honest with you, but hopefully I'm wrong. Alex will be able to tell us more.
There you go. And that's what I will ask Alex now. Charlie's also here, but I was like, if I gave Pice and Con their proper introductions, I will give Alex his proper introduction, as they all deserve. Alex, thank you very much for giving us your time on transfer deadline day. We'll talk about potentially Depay and Zakaria and also your thoughts on Aubameyang later. But I'll start with Zakaria, actually, because we've just been talking about it. What do you make of that? Do you think we are mental, or do you see some sort of logic in what Chelsea have been doing here today?
I think it's an all right move, to be honest. I reckon if this was on deadline day, there wouldn't be so much seeming controversy over it. It's hard to add what Charlie and particularly Con have just said. Well, I think you two really Parson, particularly Con just said. You guys have really summed up really nicely that, he's not a terrible player. He got into the Juventus team. And, Allegri is someone, he's a bit mixed with the players he chooses. I think that's fair to say. I guess my overall concern really with the move, concern is just I don't see what he adds to Chelsea that you didn't already have in someone like Kovacic, in a sense. Because, I mean, when he was at Gladbach last season, just before he moved to Juve, when he was really breaking back into the team, and before he had that horrible knee injury that you've referenced, Laurenz, his 2 main assets were defensive work, tackles, interceptions, winning the ball back, and ball carrying. He's an excellent dribbler. He's completing over a dribble per 90 at 79% success rate from midfield. That's quality. That's great. But you already have Kovacic, who does the dribbling fantastically. And Zakaria, I'm going to say Zakaria. That's the way I say it.
So you good boys, say it however you want, because it's probably a French, well, no, not probably. It's definitely a French origin name. So how it's actually pronounced in French, not as sure. Because he's Swiss, I pronounce it German way, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's the true way. So you say however you want.
Zakaria. Listen, we're trying to thought. He's tackles and interceptions from Gladbach last season when Gladbach were terrible, had a bad start to the year. He was averaging just over 4.2 per 90, which I haven't checked the stats, but I'm vaguely certain that's around the same as Jorginho and Kovacic. So the Kante comparison is interesting. I think it makes sense that he's ball carrying, but I don't think he's like Alvarez would have from Ajax. He would have been that guaranteed defensive presence. He's much more of a let's bring the ball forward, a bit more of a box-to-box player. So that's my only concern, really. I don't see him solving the issue that I think Chelsea fans would like him to solve, but he's not a bad player in that respect. In fact, I think the best comparison you can make is Spurs' Moussa Dembele, who multiple footballers say is one of the best Premier League players. He just went completely under the radar. So if he can avoid the injury issues, which we've referenced, and I think might be hangovers from that major knee injury, then perhaps there is room here for him to succeed at Chelsea.
but you do also not see him as like a proper sitting 6.
I don't see him as that, to be fair. I think
which is my concern, because I'm like, he's a decent player, but not what we needed.
That's just like what confuses me about this, though. Like, Alex, you're saying that, like, and this has been the theme of our window. It's like, right, we're going in for a defensive midfielder. We go and look at Alvarez, who everyone's saying, well, he's just a pure DM. He's, you know, he might have improved on the ball, but if you look at his stats, he is a pure DM. He's a you know, just a defensive-minded midfielder. His main aim is defending, and then we go for Zakaria, he's a bit of both, or, you know, he's more like a Kante. Like, where's the plan in here?
Yeah,
I don't get it. What they're different players, they're different profiles, aren't they? Like, I don't understand.
But he played the 3-man midfield player as the deepest midfielder for Gladbach at times, though. And he played it pretty well. I think it's a lazy comparison just because he can do something.
Yeah,
that's what I see with Declan
Bundesliga,
Rice.
Christ.
No. It's what I see with Declan Rice, right? People say he can't play as that holding player now because now he's more of that box-to-box player. You know, he goes forward. But it doesn't mean he can't do that sitting role. We see it for England. He does it pretty well. And Zakaria can do it as well. He's a lot more disciplined than Kante. I think that's the biggest difference between the two. He's a lot more disciplined.
And when I watch him, you make a fair point. But when Alex just tells us that one of his strengths is dribbling, if he's a great ball carrier too, then you're robbing him of one of his biggest strengths.
Yeah, and that happens, bro. That
doesn't make sense.
Happens with Declan Rice as well. He's not progressive with his passes, progressive with his carries.
Yeah, but I'm not worried about
if you have Declan Rice, but I'm just saying, but I'm just saying, if that's the main person Chelsea sort of targeted, right? So you can say the same for him if Chelsea got him. Like, okay, if you want him to sit and hold, like, you're going to limit him with his carries that he's pretty good with, that he's really improved with the last couple of seasons, you know? So just because a player's really good at doing something, it doesn't mean he's not good at doing something else. No, and he's pretty disciplined.
Yeah, I hear you, Con. I guess the thing would be, let's see how good he is as a DM for Chelsea. Like, if he can really nail it down and fulfill that role, and who's going to care if he's not utilising his strength for carrying the ball forward? A bit like Declan Rice for England. I think it's a comparison where, you know, we don't care. I'm an England fan. I don't care about him, like, not carrying the ball forward and breaking the final third because he gets England to, you know, a Euros final. So it just depends if Zakaria can get that kind of output. We're probably about to talk about Alvarez. I feel like if you were going to try and criticize a Zakaria move, you'd be like, why didn't we get a just lights out defensive midfielder if that's what we were aiming for? But it's deadline day. I mean, you're probably scrambling. I mean, Liverpool brought in Arthur Melo, which, you know, I called a couple of months ago. I have to plug that in. Everyone's kind of scrambling, so it's about best what you can get, and I think Zakaria is a good player.
Depay is not happening according to Nathan. Well, I will need to look at that. But Charlie, thank you for number one telling me about that, about that. And number two, thank you for being here. I know you have to get up early in the morning, so just tell me when you need to head off again.
Yeah, cool.
Your thoughts on Zakaria, bro?
I've got to be perfectly honest. I don't really know that much about him. I know he's decent at Gladbach. Got that move to Juventus. There's a lot of interest in him. I think last January or last summer, one of the two windows, a lot of clubs wanted him. Man United really wanted him. I think Ranić was quite a big admirer of his. He obviously goes to Juventus, but I think it's important to realise that Juventus is not really an accurate gauge of how good a player is. We've seen someone like Kulusevski at Juventus, and he's come to Tottenham and he's done very well in the Premier League. Bentancur, another one. Just because a player hasn't looked that good at Juventus, that doesn't necessarily translate to the fact that they're not that good. I think a lot of it goes with how Juve mismanage players and whatnot. But look, the thing for me is I'm glad we got someone in, but I'm just annoyed that it's even come to this, because realistically, I know we had other priorities in the window. We had to rebuild the defence. You know, we had to try and get some players off the books as well. But we could have virtually got almost any holding midfielder we wanted, bar Declan Rice potentially this summer. We could have definitely got Edson Alvarez done if we'd gone a bit earlier. We could have definitely got Sangare if we were keen for him. But I think, look, we've ended up with Zakaria. Look, you could see people calling it a Saul 2.0. I think he's obviously better than Saul. And I think, I think he can do a good job for us, but it's kind of a little bit underwhelming as well. But at least we've got someone in, and I don't know, if he can do a job and he can get back to his Gladbach form, then I think we could have someone decent. He's got the odd goal in the locker as well, which can be useful. There's not an awful lot of goals from our midfield players at the moment, so that would help. But yeah, I'm pleased we've got someone in, but it's also a little bit underwhelming because how far down the list was this guy?
According to Rob, who I had on at the start of the stream, he was third, so not that far down, to be fair.
Obviously, but behind Sangare? Well, obviously Alvarez first.
No, apparently not behind Sangare, so I don't really understand that one. He said behind Tiemoue and Alvarez. So
the Chur, I don't even want to think about the Churm anyone. That still hurts. Choosing Sal all over him, but you know, it is what it is. But no, mate. To be fair, is it the most exciting? No, not really. But I think low expectations on him could be better. It's risk free in terms of a loan. Obviously, we're covering the whole salary. There's a option to buy for 30 million and a 5-year contract. I mean, if he turns out decent and we could end up signing him for 30 mil for a top holding midfield player is nothing in this market. So the upsides to it, I think it's low risk, high reward signing. So I'm not dead against it, but I kind of wish we dealt with this earlier and maybe got someone a bit better.
I mean, I wish that too. That's the thing that I wish, that it didn't just look like we decided after we lost against Southampton and after Loftus-Cheek picked up an injury as well, alongside Kovacic not being fully fit and Kante being injured, that it didn't feel like we only then realised that actually we do need a midfielder. And that's the annoying part. If Chelsea and Thomas Tuchel decided we want Denis Zakaria, okay, fair enough. I don't necessarily see why, unless he's more, we deploy him as a 6 and he works that way more than I'm aware of, you know, him playing that previously. If that happens, brilliant, fantastic. I have no problem with that. But the fact that we only decided that halfway through today, got it done within an hour, doesn't exactly scream great transfer. That's kind of the... Do you know what I mean? It's... Yeah. It's not like I don't have a concern with Zakaria himself. I have the concern with that we buy a player that we want something from as fans that he's not going to be able to provide, and Thomas Tuchel isn't even going to ask him to provide. And then I fear that he's not even going to play a lot, because once Kante and Kova are back, if Zakaria can't play instead of Jorginho, or won't play instead of Jorginho under Tuchel, then he will just be 3rd or 4th choice player in the right, on the right position of a double pivot, and that part I don't see a point.
Do you think this is all a panic to the Southampton result? Because like someone's just said in the chat, look, you had all window to bid for Alvarez, so if you really wanted him, you could have moved earlier. Like the Southampton performance, I watched the full South. That's the first Chelsea game I watched this season, and that's one of the worst Chelsea performances I've seen. Like your sister, me and you spoke on Twitter, and we couldn't figure out what formation you were playing. We couldn't agree on it, and it feels like, I don't know, from an outside perspective, even though like there's like Leicester are making 3rd choice signings in like their centre back, Liverpool are sort of panicking with Artemillo. That feels at least like there's a bit more to it, whereas this feels almost like a reaction to Tuesday's horror.
Fair enough. Sorry, I was just trying to read 3 things at the same time. Sorry, Alex, that I didn't give what you just said, the response it deserved. Let me actually react to what we see on screen. Obviously, Pice has also tweeted it on his own tweet, and then it was confirmed by Fabrizio Romano. We were trying to get Memphis Depay, although it seems like it might have been a thing of his agents were trying to get us Memphis Depay, trying to get him out of his Barcelona contract. Now, Rob explained it earlier in a way that even if they want to terminate his contract, they still want to have an agreement for a new club in place. And there are financial reasons for that. It's tax reasons, which is why it's what we're doing with Michy Batshuayi. We're going to terminate his contract, but give him to Forest, apparently. But so they're not paying us anything. It's not a loan, but we're still kind of terminating the contract and giving him to them. And then it's just for tax reasons, basically. And he said that's what Barcelona were wanting to do with Depay. That's why they're not just terminating his contract full stop and we can sign him next week. Do you know what I mean? But I'm a little bit disappointed with that. I had a little bit of hope that we will get this done. I personally quite like Memphis Depay as a player, as to what he can bring, especially with the way Chelsea play and what I think we required to make that work better. So I would have quite enjoyed that happening. Pice, let me actually get to you before I ask Alex and Con about it as well. What's your thoughts? Now it's not happening. It seems like the only 2 deals of the day are going to be Aubameyang and Zakaria. Disappointed that it's only those 2? Disappointed that Depay specifically didn't happen? Or where exactly are your thoughts coming from?
I think Depay was more of a sort of a late sort of maybe luxury deal, I guess you could say, maybe the icing on the cake. I guess you could say that. But you know, it was just unlikely to happen, I think. Pretty much all I have to say on it. I think pretty much unlikely. All of a sudden, more from what I understand, was more the agent pushing than Chelsea actually being interested. Chelsea felt like they had enough attackers already. Definitely 3 strikers. Chelsea felt like they had enough.
I mean, I guess fair enough. Is he a real striker? That's the part I'm a little bit less sure about, if I'm being perfectly honest with you. But hey, it is what it is. Con, I'll ask you as well. Are you disappointed that Memphis Depay isn't happening, or do you not care, or what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm not moved, bro. I used to like him when he played for Lyon. Ever since he's been to Barca, I haven't really rated him. I watched him in the Champions League last season, totally blanked in the Champions League last season. And when I was watching, I was like, this guy's washed. And when I saw people hyping him up, I was like, you're just ecstatic just because he could do a back heel here and there. I'm sorry, no. It's just a signing for signing's sake. I'm definitely not losing no sleep about not getting Depay. I'll be real.
Fair. I mean, I think personally it's harsh to judge any Barcelona player on the basis of last season, because on the basis of that, they're all shit, right? And clearly a lot of them are not shit. So, that's why I would refrain from that. But fair play. Fair play. If you're not disappointed, the better for you. You won't lose any sleep over it. Alex, before I get Jem in, who has just joined us as well, tell me, do you think Depay would have been a good fit for Chelsea and a good player for Chelsea to get? Or are you more on Con's side of the coin where you're like, well, it's not really that great, so don't worry about not getting him?
I rate Depay. I did a video last summer of ranking every transfer across this window, and I put him top across Europe over 100 signings. So it's a shame he didn't work out at Barcelona. I think he's a great player. Would he have fit at Chelsea? Not too sure. I feel like you're getting annoyed at the moment by a certain number 9 who doesn't really behave like a number 9. His name shall he shall not be named because I know it might cause a war in the comments. Based on what I've seen on Twitter, did I believe it would happen? Absolutely not. Depay's been linked to absolutely everyone, and when I saw that he was linked to Chelsea, I was like, yeah, cool, that's not happening. I hope he leaves Barcelona, but I think, like you said, right, Pice into that. I think his agent is desperately throwing his name around to get him out of that hellhole.
Which is also understandable. Jem, let me get you in and let me get this Memphis Depay Donny off screen, because now we're not signing him, so now I don't need to look at that Barca badge any longer than I have to. Jem, thank you for being here, my friend. I appreciate it very much. 2 questions. I'll start with Memphis Depay. Disappointed that we're not getting him? Did you never care much for him? And I will also say that not only for him specifically, but also that this means we have now let Callum Hudson-Odoi go, let Timo Werner go, who we always used to play on the wing. Now, we didn't let Ziyech go, but he really wanted to go. We didn't let Pulisic go, who really wanted to go. But the only winger we brought in is Raheem Sterling. But we let go of so many, and the ones we didn't let go are the ones that don't want to stay. That was partly why I wanted Depay, because I'm like, number one, I think we need more wingers. Now, I understand he's not an out-and-out winger. I get that, but at least he has the abilities of a winger, in my opinion. That's where I'm most a little bit annoyed that he's not coming, because I'm like, I think just Aubameyang isn't enough for our attack, if I'm honest. But yeah, what are your thoughts on that before I ask you about Zakaria?
Well, I've always said that Sterling's not enough, and I feel like we need another creator, someone that's a bit more direct, someone that can maybe give us something that we haven't got. I think Memphis Depay is one of them players that I know some people feel, you're an expert, would probably be able to explain better on this, but a lot of people felt that if Chelsea got him, he'd be used as more like a number 9. I don't think he would. I think he'd have been used more as a versatile player across the front 3, where he can sort of, start off the left and maybe venture off to the right and just basically do him. And I think that for me in itself is probably why I would have said yeah to him. I'm not massively sold on it. I sit on the fence with him and Aubameyang when it comes to both of them. But I mean, in terms of having options, and I think the one thing that we're clearly missing at the moment, and you can see it in the team, is being able to just switch it or do something different, or maybe give someone else a chance that I think maybe benefit us. And I think, look, we're giving Havertz and Mount consistent games after games after games because we don't trust what's on our bench, or the people on the bench don't want to be here. You know what I mean? Which is not a great thing that you want in your squad. So why not have a player that's free, experience? I know he didn't have the greatest of experiences at Barcelona, and some people feel that he's lost it a bit.
Wasn't that bad for Barcelona, I swear. Was he as bad as people are making it out to be? I swear, when he first joined, he was like that only good player.
He did get a few goals. I think he got at least 10 goals in the league, but it's just it didn't quite suit the way they wanted to play. Xavi didn't like him too much and froze him out as well.
Yeah, and
obviously it
again,
doesn't help that they had a different manager when they signed him compared to when they most used him, I suppose, or were supposed to most use him. But go on, Tim, sorry.
and again, and to be honest, like I said, I haven't watched enough of Barcelona to really understand the type of player we would get him coming in. All I know is from what I've seen of him in the past, and I know that he offers something. Apparently, we're not getting him. I don't know. I haven't been looking at my phone or anything, but apparently, is that true? We're not getting him now. Is that out the window?
Yeah,
I think so. Yeah, so him not coming to Chelsea doesn't. I ain't overly upset about it. At the same time, if we'd have got him, I wouldn't have been overly excited about it. I just think it's a good option to have, and I think competition. When you're at a team like Chelsea, competition's key. We don't have that at the moment, and when you look at the successful teams in the past, we've always had competition around the pitch. It keeps people on their toes, and that's part of the issue we've got at the moment. We ain't got that.
That is very true. Very true. Before I go to Charlie actually, Charlie, I'll go to you because I know you have to get up early, and if you need to leave, even if you haven't said that much, of course, you can. Just quickly, your thoughts. I'm pretty sure that's now 6 people here, so forgive me if I forget. But I'm pretty sure you haven't given all your thoughts on Depay yet. You disappointed that he's not coming?
Not really, because I never expected him to come in the first place. So it's not that big a problem. Could we have done with him? Yeah, potentially. It would have been another option at the top end of the pitch, which I think would have been decent. Again, fits the profile of player that Tuchel seems to be going for, kind of versatile across the front line. It does tick a lot of boxes. Maybe a point to prove in the Premier League as well with how it was at Man United for him. I think he's matured a lot as a player since then. He's obviously done reasonably well at Barca under Koeman. It's not gone so well under Xavi, but end of the day, as Con said, there's no point losing too much sleep over this because we never really expected him to sign anyway, so it doesn't really matter that much. But look, he could have been useful, but it's not one to be like, oh shit, we've missed out on Depay and he's gone somewhere else. I don't think it's that big a problem.
I hear that. Jem, question. Zakaria, what do you think? I won't even bore you with our preconceptions or what our opinions are. What do you think?
I'm intrigued to know what you guys said, to be honest, because I'll be honest with you, I'm not 100%
I'm sure we'll still discuss it. We have an hour to go, don't we? So even if now that we don't seem to sign anyone else, but hey.
Again, I'll be honest with you, I've not watched enough of him. I know I looked at when we was live earlier, I was looking at his stats and I was looking at his injury record. That is, I think when you look at the stats and the injury records, that is slightly worrying. And it's not that he's out for long term. It's the fact that he misses 2 games here, 3 games there. And it's a little bit like what we got with Kovacic at the moment, where he will play, but then he will always have sort of a niggly injury that puts him out for a couple of games here and there. And I don't know if that's a good thing for us, but at the same time, I'm up for, and I know Con's a big fan of him. I'm open to see what he can offer. And when I looked at the stats, one of the things that stood out a lot was his ability to be able to pass. Like his passing ability was very good from midfield. He's very comfortable on the ball. He likes moving the ball very quickly. It might not be great aerially, but again, good with blocks, good with interceptions, gets stuck in, and he offers a lot. And the stats say that he's not a bad player, to be fair. Eye test wise, I wouldn't be able to say much. And all I know is that a couple of years ago, when he was playing for Mönchengladbach at the time, Chelsea wanted him. We us fans and many people were talking about how good he was and what he's about. And from what I've been told, some people feel that he suits the Premier League. And why? I think the problem with Juventus is I think you can't look at them as a barometer as well, because you've only got to look at some of their players that just don't work there, but then they leave and there's a couple like Koulibaly's done very well for Spurs. You know what I mean? Like there's players that have just left Juventus and then kicked on. So I think it's hard to look at Juventus and go, oh, he's crap. Do you know what I mean? Look what he's done there. And from what I understand, he didn't really get a chance there anyway. So it's like, I'm open for it. And if it means we go into this season having another player in that position or not, I'm always going to say, yes, let's just take the risk and have a player in that position, especially when we're only loaning him and we've got the option to buy at 30 million anyway. It could be a Sal 2.0, which means he could potentially be crap and he goes. But it's a low risk reward for Chelsea again. And I think it's, again, quite a smart signing.
Fair play. I mean, yeah, like what we were talking about in terms of and that was not just me, not necessarily the boys, but I'm saying one season of 4 muscle injuries isn't enough for me to call someone injury prone. For me, it needs to be more than one season for that to be the case. But go on, Pice, what you were trying to say?
Wait, I saw someone said in the chat earlier we shouldn't buy him because he was injury prone. Was that you? Or was that someone else?
I did, and then I actually did some research and was like, "Oh, he's not as
All
English
right.
as
Okay.
I
was
did-
thinking,
did say
I
that, that's fine.
swear, like you, I swear that was you said that, or someone said that in there. I was like, what?
It
Fair enough.
absolutely is. It absolutely is. Now, Alex actually brought up a very interesting point here in the private chat about a player that he, in his opinion, thinks we missed out on most, and that is Arsen Zakharyan. Is how I'm going to try to pronounce his name.
Nailed it.
I might have butchered it. I will get something up on screen so people are reminded of who that guy actually is. Ladies and gentlemen, before we get to that, actually, please do subscribe. We have nearly 400 people watching. It's transfer deadline day. Now, I will be honest with you. Chances are we're not going to do that much more. Oh, I highlighted the wrong screen. Let me get that away again and highlight the correct screen. But yeah, if you're new here, please be sure to subscribe. Smash the like button as well. And please do subscribe to all of my wonderful guests down in the description below. Follow their socials. Subscribe to their YouTube channels if they have any. Do all of those things, please. But yes, Arsen Zakharyan, as a statement was released by Dynamo Moscow today, we did try to buy him, but for reasons that Russia is cut off from all, well, online financial, I guess contact to the rest of the world really these days. It was very difficult to get anything done. But Alex is a little bit of an expert on him. He doesn't call himself Euro expert for no reason. So why, Alex, do you think that he's a guy that we missed out on a lot? And I will also say there is a chance that we still go for him again or try to figure something out in January.
Yeah, I was talking to Alex Goldberg earlier, and he said looks like something could be on in January as well for it. And I really hope so for a Chelsea sake, because he's easily the most talented player in Russia right now, full stop. Not just potential, like he's absolutely brilliant. I think he was 18 last season and hit nearly 20 goals and assists. And unlike a lot of players in the Russian Premier League, he was coached by who's now at Hertha Berlin, Sandro Schwarz, a German coach. So you could visibly see him improving last season at Dynamo Moscow nearly every game, starting nearly every game at the right wing. He's a bit like Sancho in that he's a playmaker. He's really good technically. I think he is Russia's youngest ever player in an international tournament. When it looked like it was going through, it was getting very excited. I know Chelsea probably would have loaned him out straight away, but he's easily the darling of Russian football. And I've been watching him over the past year quite a bit, and I will double check to a journalist who was staying in Russia from the UK, and he said basically everyone, like even people in Zenit who would have been Moscow's biggest rivals last year, they say that Zakharyan is the one. They absolutely love him. So if Chelsea do get that done in January, that's something to look forward to as a fan.
Fair play. Now, I'm not going to ask the other boys much about it because chances are you know as much about them as I do, which is nothing, other than the 3 Twitter comms we might have all seen. But the next thing we should probably discuss and should talk about is another player we actually did sign or are signing, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. And sorry to be boring to the other boys, I want to start with Alex and then let the other boys base their opinion potentially on what he said. Do you think that Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang will be a success for Chelsea?
Oh, I'm about to drop a bomb. I reckon I'm going to give the most negative answer. I know he's been good under Tuchel before. I know he started well at Barcelona, but the facts are the facts. Since the 2016-17 season, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang has scored less and less goals every single year. Scored less goals than the season before every year in a row. I do think he's dropped off quite a lot. And you look at this Chelsea attack, you put him into a team that, let's be honest, the last number 9 who came in and started scoring goals was Diego Costa. I struggled to see him scoring much more than 10 goals. But he'll be better than you've had the last couple of years. But I think you're setting yourself up for a bit of a disappointment if you expect him to score like 20 goals. We
ain't got the creators for that to start with. We ain't expecting 20 goals, bro. Don't worry.
If he gets 5, it'll be an achievement, right?
Yeah, see, but that's why that what you just said there, Pies, is partly why I'm like, why even buy Aubameyang then? Like, exactly what you just said is like, Tuchel potentially disagrees with us, but if we don't have the creator for the striker anyway, why buy the striker before the creator? It's pointless. Because with a better creator, also a worse striker would score more. You don't need a better striker to score nothing out of nothing. We had a whole one chance in the second half against Southampton. Well, we're not going to score with one chance, whether it's Aubameyang, Havertz, Broja, or flipping Ronaldo up top. It doesn't make a difference. if we create
I
one
don't-
chance per half.
I don't think he misses some of the chances that we've had this season. If it was him, and I'll give you an
This
example,
season-
the Havertz chance against Spurs in front of goal, I think he puts that in the back of the net. Like there's little things that I think he could be the difference. You
But
know,
weren't we saying the exact same sentence you said, the exact same sentence about Lukaku last year? Like I'm a big believer in stacks and the facts, but it's like are Chelsea just cursed with your number 9s? Like nearly every
but
player who comes in.
Just give him the
Lukaku-
number
Lukaku
11.
would
What the
never-
love of God. I mean, that Werner had that, so maybe he cursed it now. But you know,
Lukaku would have never found himself in that position anyway. Let's be serious. That Havertz found himself. As with Aubameyang, I think he actually moves. So you know, Lukaku can't move. That's another story for another day. But we've got to make sure we retire that number 9 shirt. I don't want to see it anywhere near any player anymore. I think we should just give up on it. Honestly, just retire it. It's
as
dead.
do I, come on. Charlie, let me get to you, and after that, I'll let you go because I know you've got an early start. Hence why I'm going to go with you first. Aubameyang. Now that it's done, obviously we've spoken about it previously. Now that it's done, what are your thoughts, especially after what you just heard Alex say? Now, Alex could be wrong. I'm sure he says as well, I could be wrong. But will he be wrong?
Oh, I hope so. But I mean, I was chatting to Chelsea Database earlier, and he was saying the same thing, that his conversion rate, it's been going down every season, I think, since 2016-17 or something like that. And when you see that, that's not great. I mean, that coupled with the number 9 shirt is a perfect recipe for him to be shit. But having said that, I think again, like Zakaria, I think it's low risk, high reward for Chelsea. It's not much money. Yes, he's 33 years of age, but you know, there's 2-year deal with an option for a third. I think that kind of makes sense. Tuchel knows him. I mean, he knows the Premier League. He's got a point to prove with how things ended at Arsenal. And if it doesn't work out, then I think, well, 2-year deal and we've not spent much money. It's not a complete disaster. But I think the big thing is that the pressure is massively on Tuchel on this one, because this is his guy. This is the guy that he wants to bring in. He has to make this work because he wanted him. And I'm not sure if we were in for anyone else really, but this is Tuchel's guy. So he has to make this work. Do I think Aubameyang will work? I hope so. We know he has been versatile in his career, playing down the middle and down left or right or whatever. But I think he'll probably operate mostly down the middle. Probably alternate between him and Havertz. I agree with Jem though. I do think he will score the chances that most of our forwards miss. I think he's still got that clinical thing in him, and I think he's definitely going to be the best finisher at the club for sure in that forward line. But at the same time, I always worry when any centre forward comes to Chelsea, just given how poor the track record's been. But I think it's low risk, high reward, and it could work out. But again, I'm not expecting loads of goals. If he can get sort of between 10 and 15 in the league this season, I think that's a very good. I think it's a good contribution. 10. Let's remember the last two.
That's a big ask, bro.
10 goals. A big
Yeah,
ask.
bro. I don't think any of our players are scoring 10 goals.
Well, I was going. Well,
Mate, if 10 goals is a big ask, why the fuck did we sign him?
yeah, this is a problem. But like, you look at our top scorers in the last couple of seasons. What, Lukaku 8 goals last season in the Premier League, I think, with Havertz. Jorginho 8 or 9 the season before. If we bought a centre forward in that can't get 10 goals, what are we doing?
I see us as a team more that multiple individuals chip in rather than the sole focus.
Yeah, but no one's chipping in though, Pice. That's the problem.
I know, but I think it will as the season goes forward. That's what I'm saying. I don't think we've brought Aubameyang in just to rely on Aubameyang.
No, for sure.
I hope we haven't, because that's the mistake we did with Lukaku.
Yeah, but I can't see between Havertz, Sterling, Aubameyang, Mount, and whatnot, and maybe Pulisic, Ziyech to a lesser extent. But I mean, are those guys really going to get sort of like 7 or 8 goals each between them? I thought maybe Sterling might get 7 or 8. Well, he should do, but I wouldn't bank on Havertz or Mount getting 10 league goals.
At least Aubameyang's like a more classic number, not just like an outside perspective from the Tuesday game. If you had like the one thing Chelsea, the big thing that Chelsea were lacking was structure. It felt like you had too many players doing what they felt like doing, like Mason Mount pushing up Highland, the striker who wanted to go to the left wing, and Kukurea playing as a left winger, and Aspilicueta playing as a centre back, and it became that disjointed mess. Like, at least if you signing Aubameyang over Depay, who's a bit more of a floater, but at least you might have someone who's going to at least stay more to that number 9 zone, and you maybe have something to build off of. I think like the worst thing could have been
we had that last season, and that didn't work either with Lukaku.
But
now, obviously, Lukaku is not Aubameyang, I understand, but still, we had someone that stayed there, and then we were complaining about that they didn't move enough.
As Jem said, in fairness, didn't move enough. Maybe Lukaku like just didn't move. At least Aubameyang is like maybe he's on a serious thing. Aubameyang's like a good mix between able to float between the wings, but is a bit more of a can play the number 9 role. So you just need like that sort of thing to play off and then build your team around and hopefully links up your play. I mean, your ideal signing, in my opinion, would have been someone like Ivan Toney, who's just the perfect Premier League hold-up man. But Aubameyang's not the worst if he stops his decline.
There you go. Well,
as long as he scores goals, I think that's the main thing, isn't it? And like whether he plays in a front two, him and Sterling with like a Mount or someone in behind, or whether he plays as part of a 3 with Sterling and Havertz or Sterling, Mount, whoever it is. Like, I think he will get goals and he will make a difference, but he's not going to, I don't think he's suddenly going to drastically transform our attacking issues. It's not going to solve all the problems, but what it will do is have someone that can put the ball in the net, hopefully. And that's what we are missing.
We are missing that for sure. And I mean, Aubameyang's traits, they certainly do suit himself well to be a very good striker. As much as he's older now and not quite as quick anymore as he was 5, 6, 7 years ago, still got a lot of pace, pretty good finishing. He's tall enough to score headers. He's tall enough to win a header also from a long ball. And he's technically not bad. Like, he can pass the ball. He can, control the ball. He has most of the things that you want a striker to have. He has those. Now, some people talk about the Arsenal stuff. I was also about the Arsenal stuff when it was about the tattoo, but then I thought he has some sort of Arsenal badge on him. Then I figured out he doesn't. And I was like, why is everyone even talking about this tattoo? I know I was talking about it too, but only because I thought it was a different tattoo. And then I realized what the tattoo was, and I was like, well, who cares then? I mean, we've signed Giroud, we've signed Fabregas, we signed Ashley Cole. Clearly not every Arsenal player, ex-Arsenal player that we sign is necessarily bad. I just hope he's not the first one that is. That's what I hope. But Pice, let me take this to you. Number one, your thoughts, and number two, also the details of the deal. So it's a 2-year deal with an option for a third, but that option, as far as I'm aware, and correct me if I'm wrong, is more a case of percentage of games played in the second year rather than it's about us taking up the option or him taking up the option. Is that correct?
I think so. I'm not entirely sure. I think that's what David Ornstein said at least. But yeah, I'm pretty sure he said the percentage of the games, like you said. Yeah, be interesting to see. I mean, that's a weird negotiation for an extra year. Usually, it's just based on if you want to extend it or not, right? Or if the player wants to.
Because
that's what we have with Silva, didn't
we need to sign the Aubameyang replacement already next summer. Because if we don't have him next summer, then Aubameyang will play too many games the season after and will automatically get a 3rd-year contract when we don't want him anymore. So what that tells us is we must sign Aubameyang's replacement already next summer to make sure Aubameyang doesn't play too many games next season. Or, well, next season because we're already in this season, I guess.
Laurenz, don't you rate Broha then?
Do I honestly, heart on soul, believe that Broja will ever be the regular starting striker for Chelsea? No. I think he's very good. I think there is a very good player in there. But do I honestly believe he will be our start? Will we not sign a proper striker next summer instead of Broja and Aubameyang? I don't believe that. Maybe some of you believe that. I don't believe that. But Connor, I'm very sorry. I know I haven't let you speak in a long time. Let me just let Pice finish on that, and then I'll get to you. Pice, in general, thoughts on Aubameyang? I know you said you're kind of, well, pessimistic is maybe the wrong word. You're more like pessimistic for the rest of the team rather than for Aubameyang, the way I heard that. But do you think it will work out in the end or not?
I mean, depends what your class is working out. Will he help us win a trophy or two? Potentially, yeah. I do think he's got something in him that, I mean, the first words he said, he jumped out of a cab and one of the Sky Sports reporters were there and he said, "I'm back," just like Lukaku did. So I was like, oh no, I was getting flashbacks to that. But yeah, no, I do think he'll be good if he gets the chances, which is my problem. I don't think we create enough chances for him. And again, even with Sterling, like Sterling's scoring goals, but I'm not entirely sure Aubameyang is that guy that when you give him 1 or 2 chances a game, he's going to finish both of them. I think if we really wanted that, you just go and sign Cristiano Ronaldo. But again, Tuchel didn't want him. Tuchel's been backed. So yeah, let's see what Tuchel can get out of him. I guess that's the main thing, really. It's the manager's decision, as with all these targets, especially this one is probably the most Tuchel-driven target. So, he can't say, look, this is not what I wanted. He's here now, and you've got to try and make it work with the team.
Fair play. Con, sorry that I haven't gotten your opinion involved. What's your thoughts on Aubameyang? I know you're very much and I respect it a lot. You're very much a person of, once we go for someone as a football club, you're like, they're going to work, and until they don't work, you're going to say they're going to work. And I respect that, because it's almost like manifesting it. But is that how you'd explain it, manifesting it, or do you genuinely believe Aubameyang will be good for us?
When it was first linked, I wasn't that moved, right? I thought it was a bit nonsense at first as well. But when it started heating up, started thinking about it a bit more. He's actually been pretty good for Barcelona, to be honest. I don't know where the impressions come from that he's been bad while he's been there. He's been pretty good. The only issue I had was, does he still have the legs at 34, It's not a young age. Like you said, yeah, I'd rather, if this was like, I don't know, 5-6 years ago, I wanted Aubameyang over Morata and Lukaku, when Conte was getting that new striker. That was the guy I wanted. So if it was then, I'd been over the moon, bro.
I wanted these days, when we helped Arsenal sign flipping Aubameyang, when we got Giroud instead. Giroud was good for us, but still, Aubameyang would have been miles better at the time.
Yeah, for real, bro, for real. But it's one of those, I don't think he's a bad signing, because the price is relatively cheap. It's only a stopgap anyway. That's the impression I get from it. So, and it's nice to have some extra depth, because Broha and Havertz wasn't enough for the season. And Aubameyang, he's tried and tested. He's done it in every single team he's gone to. Please don't fire blanks when you come to us, bro. But he played for Arsenal, and that juju always goes in our favour. So,
That is true. That is true. Before I go to Jem with a similar question, Con, do you think just Aubameyang added to our attack, of course, after Sterling already weeks ago, is enough to make our attack not look like a bunch of clowns anymore? Or
I'll tell you straight up, no.
That it won't be enough?
No, this attack's horrid. It's horrid. I wanted the right winger. As soon as we signed Sterling, I wanted the right winger. That was my priority after Sterling. I know people were saying DM, and I'm not talking about centre-backs here, but I really wanted the right winger. And when it looked like we weren't getting it, it's like, yeah, whatever. I'm just going to accept that. We're going to have to fight for our lives for top 4 this season, and we're going to see dumb clown after clown in that attack, just ball chances and can't play in tight areas, just lose the ball and just give turnovers away. So I've accepted that already, bro.
Fair enough. Charlie, I know you need to go. Appreciate you for coming on, even if you didn't say that much. I'm sorry. I had also this whole plan, like when people are going to join. All of a sudden, I had everyone at the same time.
It's all good, mate. I would stay longer, but I'd be an absolute zombie in work, so it wouldn't be ideal. But yeah, mate. Cheers.
We don't want that.
Cheers on me as always. Yeah,
night,
boys. Take care, boys. Nice one. See you later, lads.
Take care. Jem, I finally come back to you. Aubameyang. Happy? Unhappy? Do you think it will work? What do you reckon?
Obama who? Obama what? Obama, give me a blooming another forward, man. Give me another forward. That's what I'm going to say. Look. Yeah, look.
You've got half an hour. I don't see it happening anymore now.
Give me Leao, man. I'm sitting on the fence with it, to be honest. It's one of them ones where I kind of get it, but then I still feel like I'm still trying to understand how he fits us. I know some of you guys feel that he does suit because Tuchel knows him and he might work in the system well. But for me, it's the chemistry thing. And one of the issues that I have with Chelsea at the moment with the forward line is they're all chalk and cheese. It doesn't matter what formation we play. They're too far between. They're not. There's no real understanding. There's no chemistry link between any three that we ever play. And I think it's important, especially when you're a striker. It doesn't matter what striker you are in the world. I think it's important for you to have some sort of good connection with with all the team, but specifically players that play close to you. Especially when you're breaking forward and things like that. So, look, Aubameyang, I think, brings a lot of experience. That's one thing for sure. I do think he scores goals. I think he can score in all competitions a good 10 to 15 goals. I think.
I think he has to. Anything below, I know Price says he doesn't, but anything below that would be a huge.
You can't.
If you buy a striker, it's not exactly a high bar, is it? Like Lukaku scored more than that last season in all comps.
any striker that plays at a top level, if you ask them just to score 10 to 15 goals, they'd probably say no problem. Do you know what I mean? Like, yeah, that's my job. Like, what is a striker's job in a team? Score goals. Like, you know, asking for 10 goals at a minimum is not.
We
Shouldn't
also
be.
need to create chances for him, though.
I agree with you. I
But we
think,
do
yeah,
create like Sterling could have had a hat trick against Southampton in the first 20 minutes. We just
It's
didn't
weird
create anything
because
after that.
it's weird, but this is the way I see it, because we do create in certain games a lot of chances, and in other games we're completely non-existent, and that again falls down to the consistency and the chemistry within the team, the balance. And this is the issue. We have a couple of injuries left, right, and centre in certain positions, and that's when you start seeing that the forward line struggles. I think Aubameyang is good. I don't think it's enough. I agree with Con. I'll keep saying that. I don't think it's enough. We do need another creator in the forward line, along with Sterling and him. But we'll have to see, innit? We really have to see.
We will have to see. We will have to see. As you can see on screen, Simon Johnson put out an update on the Aubameyang situation. I do kind of laugh at the first comment.
By the way, I was going to say, before you read this, it's pretty much irrelevant because Fabrizio just said it's done and completed. So,
oh well, there you go. I'll get that up. But still, I had to laugh at the comment below. Was like, you tweeted this to get interactions, didn't you?
I was reading that. I was thinking, what? So you tweeted out that there's some minor details, but it's not a problem. So why tweet it out? I don't get that.
Yeah, I don't get
really
that
get
either.
that.
One thing none of us have commented on yet is that the guy had his jaw broken by a bunch of burglars breaking into his house, and is now going to be out injured until after the international break, which takes place at the very end of September. So will only play for us at the very beginning of October, unless he makes a miraculous, comeback earlier than that, which would be surprising because a broken jaw is nothing to joke about. Like, you can't play football with a broken jaw. Imagine the first centre back elbow in the face, crying for the next 2 weeks. Do you know what I mean? Say again.
It looked all right when he got out of the taxi today.
He did, but you can't exactly have a cast around your face, can you? So
I don't know, to be fair. What do they do to broken jaws? You just walk around with it or what? I don't know.
My brother had a broken jaw when he was a kid, and he just had surgery, then had some screws in his face, but you didn't see them from the outside. So, yeah, maybe it's one of those. I don't know. I have no idea. But Alex, I do want to get to you as well before you head off. And I did have all these questions in mind that I now can't think of. So what I want to take it to as well is a little bit of outgoings chat, because, and I'll need Pice's help for this as well very soon, because the amount of outgoings Chelsea have had today, like, I don't even have so many fingers. Do you know what I mean? But the biggest one, not in terms of name, not in terms of especially transfer fee, but the biggest controversy, in my opinion, was probably caused by Billy Gilmour's permanent departure to Brighton today for £9 million. And I was speaking about this to Rob at the very beginning of the stream, and I was like, we bought Cesare Casadei for 15 million euros, a kid who's never played a single game of professional football. Billy Gilmour has played 22 games for Chelsea, Premier League, Champions League, FA Cup, League Cup, played a season of Premier League football with Norwich. Sure, wasn't great and got relegated. I understand that, but how many other places? Like, that happened to Ampadu. No one cares about that. So, what do you make of that? Number one, the fee, and number two, the fact that Thomas Tuchel just seems to not rate him whatsoever, which I find the confusing part, because you're not man of the match in your Premier League debut, Champions League debut, and FA Cup debut against a strong Liverpool team, just when you're shit. That doesn't happen.
Well, you said the fee. Let me hit you with a fact, Laurenz. A big fact about this fee. The Chelsea Football Club value Anthony Gordon 71 million euros more expensive than Billy Gilmour.
Christ.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. What was that kid that Wolves signed for, what, 42 million or whatever it is?
Mateus Nunes.
No. The one from who did they sign from? Sheffield United, and he was on loan somewhere.
Oh, you mean Morgan Gibbs-White going to Sheffield, going to Forest? Yes.
Oh, that's it. Sorry, that's it. From Wolves, who was on loan at Sheffield last season. There you go. He was, what, 42 million after a championship loan, and Billy Gilmour goes for 9 million. What?
Yeah. Did he have a long? Was his contract running out or something? Because I don't know, but I guess the thing about Billy Gilmour thing as well, which must add fuel to the fire, is, I mean, I first came on this channel when Tuchel arrived after Frank Lampard left. I think bar Mason Mount, I think Billy Gilmour was one of Frank Lampard's biggest wins, right? Like he got put into that first team. I remember him against Liverpool where he was man of the match. It's like the fact he's left is like not only the fee, like what are you doing here? Not only experience, like he's better than some of the players you've been linked with, what you're doing here, but like what a Chelsea sort of sacrifice in that. And I'm like, I remember when he first joined still because he was rated so highly in Scotland, like he was one of the best like players coming through the ranks. So it's quite surprising he's been allowed to leave. But is the fee lower than Tarek Lamptey, even to Brighton as well?
I think he was 5 million actually, but he only had 6 months left in his contract at least.
Yeah, fair. So yeah, I definitely see the controversy around this. And
apparently Billy's contract would have expired next year, so but still.
Yeah, that's probably a big reason behind it. I guess that's the only thing I can think of. But I guess the only thing would be as well is he's such a physically light player. That's the concern. Can he really perform in the Premier League? This story you've got up on screen is absolutely mental, considering Dieng is like one of the most exciting players coming through.
I want to know why he failed the medical. Like, what has he done?
I don't know.
Oh my god!
I don't know what's happening. I don't know what's happening.
I was listening to this earlier as well. This is like literal karma because Fabrizio was saying that Leeds were absolutely furious with this guy because he was waiting at the airport for like hours. And then he decided to join that team, and now he's failed his medical. Oh my god!
It's weird, look, because last season he was at Marseille, and he was like maybe their best attacker besides Payet. He was ridiculous. His first season, this Senegalese one kid who's getting, he doesn't play anything like him, but like the way he scored goals is getting compared to Didier Drogba. Like, so one, it was mental, it was leaving. Two, this whole thing today is mental, and three, failing the medical. It's ridiculous. Yeah, what a weird story. But Billy Gilmour, yeah, very interesting and very complicated.
For sure. Before we get to the super chat, which is an interesting one, and I do want to ask the boys about, I want to ask the others about this Billy Gilmour departure for the fee as well. And I'll start with you, Con. You're disappointed with Billy Gilmour leaving on a permanent without a buyback clause, by the way? I asked Rob that. As far as he's aware, there's no buyback clause. We might have a sell-on clause, but there's no buyback clause. So it's not exactly amazing, that, is it?
It's a funny story, right? So I fell asleep when I was meant to be on Jem's channel, right? So then I come on, and he literally just updates me, and then he says, Billy Gilmour, we sold him for 9 million. And like, it didn't hit me at first. I was like, 9 million? I think I said it like 3 times, didn't I, Jem? Like, 9 million? 9 million? You sure it's 9 million? I can't believe that fee, bro. It's utterly ridiculous, man. I can't be happy with that. I can't be happy with that. And there's no buyback either. I can't be happy with that.
We signed Mark Guehi for 18 million after not playing a single Premier League game. How have we only got 9 million for Billy Gilmour? I do not understand. Like, it's poor.
Obviously,
what Alex said is a fair point. Is his lack of physical stature is a problem. I also personally think he's not a 6, he's an 8, because his physical stature keeps him from ever being a great 6, but he could be a great 8, in my opinion, because he has the engine. He can tackle because he's Scottish, and he can clearly pass and dribble, and I don't know if he can shoot, if I'm honest. But
a player of that age, bro,
he's an 8 to do. But
yeah, a player of that age, and arguably having a man of match performance versus Man City, arguably having a man of match performance against Liverpool, getting a man of match against England for Scotland, and you're getting that for 8 million at his age. Poor. That was poor from us. We dropped the ball on that one.
I agree. Like, honestly, when I saw the fee, I was like, okay, that must mean there is a buyback clause. When I then heard the reason, I was like, what? Really? Like, how? What? Crazy. Pice, reaction to Billy Gilmour leaving?
A bit disappointed, I can't lie. I rate him. I think he should have stayed over Gallagher, to be honest with you. I think he suits our team better, especially in a pivot, to be quite honest with you. But yeah, I think the price is just ridiculous as well. Considering, like, I was making this comparison earlier, someone else did as well. Like, we signed that Cassaday, right, for £12.5 million, right? Billy Gilmour is a Scottish international, and he's had a season in the Prem, and he's only sold for 9 million. Like,
you couldn't even say 2 seasons in the Prem.
Yeah, like that for me. Yeah, he's even played for some games for Chelsea, of course. So that for me is just way too low, and that's why I was thinking, like, I don't know if Rob's information is correct or whatever, but if it is, then that is just outrageous. Because I was thinking, well, maybe we've gone down lower on the price, so we have like a 30 million buyback.
That's what I was thinking, exactly. Yeah,
because otherwise, for me, that's a rare poor deal, to be fair.
if you value the homegrown quota as like at like 10 million, which in fairness probably is at minimum for most players, then
Mate,
like,
if he's English, he's going for like 30, 40 mil. I'm sorry.
well, no, if he's Scottish, that counts
technically
still.
sound. He's so good.
If he's Scottish, that counts still. Like that counts towards the homegrown quota.
No, I'm just saying, like if he had that English like background in general instead of Scottish,
yeah.
you know, like
But-
it's incredible. I can't believe it.
You'd be intrigued what Declan Rice cost if he never decided to change from Ireland to England, wouldn't you?
Yeah, but I was gonna say like with this,
Yeah, exactly,
he
that's
fits.
what I
So,
mean.
and my point is, Billy Gilmour fits the homegrown quota. So, and that usually adds like 10 million to a transfer. So, what if Chelsea actually valued Gilmour like as a player here? Because like you suspect that a chunk of that transfer fee has to be down to the fact he's going to count towards Brighton's homegrown quota. So, like, really, is this like a 4 or 5 million? Like what they valued him at? Like they valued him at absolutely nothing.
Yeah. And all of this after we paid extra for Cucurella so they would accept Colwell on loan rather than as a permanent. And now we're trying to sign Josko Gvardiol anyway, having Fofana and Gvardiol, two super young centre-backs, meaning Colwell will never properly play for us, meaning why didn't we just sell him permanently? So many questions. And even like on Billy Gilmour. Now, last season, or when he first joined after Lampard, Tuchel had a lot of high praise for Billy Gilmour consistently. Then it was Tuchel that sent him to his mate Daniel Farke on loan at Norwich, who then got sacked, 3 months later? Billy has an awful loan, comes back, and from one thing to another, compared to a year ago when he was all sorts of full of praise for Billy, now after his loan with his mate, who then got sacked, now he's all of a sudden not in his plans anymore. What? What is this logic? I don't understand. I don't understand any of it. Jem, what are your thoughts? Billy Gilmour leaving.
Much more to really say, is there? To be honest, it don't really make, for me, it don't really make sense. You know, you should at least add another 1 to that 9. You know, 19 mil. I think easily we could have got for him. You know, I just think he's well underpriced, and they've got themselves a great deal there. I think there is a player in Billy Gilmour. I think he is a good player, and I think evidently that playing for Brighton in the way that they play under Graham Potter, I think you could maybe potentially see an even better Billy Gilmour in just the way that they play the game in terms of their style of football. And he loves playing progressively forward. He's, you know, I don't think he's defensively great, but I think if Graham Potter can mould him into the system that he's got currently at Brighton to get the best out of him, where it allows him to be more box to box further up the pitch, I think he could be a really good player. And
They must be delighted with signing him.
Yeah, no, I think he could. I'm not joking. I think he could take off. Like if he get it right, I think you're. I think that, you know, for £9 million, he could easily be a 30.
We better have a buyback. I swear to God.
I'm worried.
They better have negotiated something for him, because it's volumes when Graham Potter wants.
Rob could be wrong. He said no buyback clause. That there's a sell-on clause. What is a sell-on clause anyway?
What is a sell-on clause? I've never read that.
Oh, so say Brighton sold him for 50 mil. Whatever percentage we agreed on, we'd get that amount. Kind of like what you know. So the former club will get, you know, say I don't know, if it's 50 million and we have 20% selling clause.
What someone in the comments has just said. Well, someone in the comments has just said that Rangers have on Gilmour, so you actually get less of that 9 million fee than that you're meant to get.
There you go.
Yeah, that is true. Some of it will go to Rangers, but not that much, because he joined us when he was 15 or 16, so they won't get that much.
I think someone said 20%.
That can't be true. He joined us way too young that they can.
That's not been mentioned by anyone today, even like the journalists. So I'm not sure if that's 100% accurate.
There you go. Just quickly, I will get back to the other super chat just because it fit the topic. Artem, appreciate it very much, saying Tuchel never even gave him a proper chance. Crazy part is the dude that had like 11 starts as a senior player for Chelsea and 1 man of the match in 4 of them. Well, when you hear that, you are baffled. Number 1, why he sold, and number 2, why, you know, he was sold for so little. But this other super chat by Adam, which I thought was a good question. He asks, who is Thomas Tuchel's preferred third attacker with Sterling and Aubameyang? Who is the panel's preferred third attacker? Now, because we're not 100% guaranteed to actually always play 3, we might also continue our 4-2-2 situation. So I will ask you first as a third, and then I will ask you who will be third and fourth if we play the other formation. But let's start with this one. And I will start with you, Con. Sterling and Aubameyang. Who is the other one in the front 3? Let's assume it's the 3-4-3 system, which means Mount will not be in midfield. Does Mount keep that spot? And if it's not Mount, who does?
Yes.
Stop it.
Yes, 100%.
But in this formation, even though we know he's not good in this formation.
Yeah, we need some creativity out somewhere. Otherwise, Sterling and Aubameyang are starving, man. Sterling's just going to have to do so much on his own. Aubameyang, you'll get no service. You need some sort of creativity in there. And for me, if we're not selling Ziyech, I think he can come in and he can do something. He can really do something. And if you can't play Reece James at right wing back, you play Loftus and you get somebody who's always close to Ziyech to get the best out of him. But yeah, I'll put Ziyech there. We need creativity, bro. Mount's not that guy. Pulisic's not that guy. Sorry, but he's the only one who I can trust to actively create chances every game.
Fair dues. Fair dues. Alex, before you head off, let me ask you this very question as well. In the Chelsea front 3, which we would assume has Raheem Sterling and Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, who, in your opinion, and I know the Southampton game was the first Chelsea game you did manage to watch this season. We are bad, but we weren't always this bad, I will say. But who do you think should be that third attacker if it is a front 3?
I'm so glad Con went first, because when you asked that, I didn't have a clue. I'd be inclined to go with Ziyech because it's controversial. I don't think Mount's been particularly good. It's the first Chelsea game I'm watching full, but I have been keeping up with your extended highlights, and I've not been particularly impressed by Mount this season. I don't think Havertz gets in. I'm really starting to see your issues with this squad because there's no one who starts on the right, is there, besides Ziyech?
Which is why I wanted Depay, and then either you play Depay on the right or you push Sterling on the right. I don't care, but we needed someone.
Yeah, Ziyech.
And the problem is, obviously, Alex, you might not be as well aware of this. Whenever we used Ziyech in a 3-4-3, he was awful. When we used him in more wide positions, he was much better. So that's why I asked him to Con. I'm like, are you sure in this formation? I'm not sure, but I also don't have a much better answer either. I would be totally honest. So
Loftus-Cheek, why not? He's playing on the right.
Go on, come on, the Rubes. No, but he's our right wing back. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, sorry, my mistake.
Yeah, it's a good one. But Alex, I appreciate you very much for giving us your time, for sharing your insights on Depay, on Zakaria, on Aubameyang, and I forget the Russian's name, but the Russian name. There you go. Appreciate your time. Take care, mate. Everyone subscribe to him and follow his links, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube. Links are all down in the description. Please do follow him. But yeah, Alex, have a good night, and we'll chat to you soon.
Thank you. I just want to say my final word. I've just been thinking about it. This Chelsea squad, I've been looking at it for the past hour, and my word is, it's like when you get into 2025 on FIFA Camira Road, and you go to save Chelsea, and this is the squad they give you. I'll leave you to ponder that. Have fun.
Fantastic.
Have a good night, guys.
Fantastic. Cheers, mate. Cheers to end it on such a honey note.
Bye.
Okay, man. Jem, I'll go to you next. Konzet Ziyech. Alex kind of lent towards Ziyech. Who are you going to say?
Not Ziyech.
I thought that was happening.
I get the whole creative thing, but he does it when he wants to do it. And I swear it's so limited. It's ridiculous. I can't even remember the last time. I know he did that one ball to Havertz and in the last game round, but he's just so inconsistent with it. I can't. Reece James.
But then who's right wing back? Ruben behind him or what?
Just put Reece James as a right forward and put Ruben right wing back or something. Reece James has just got such a good. I'm not joking. When you put, it sounds mad, right? But Reece James, when you think about him in front of goal, he's probably one of our best shooters in the team. Like you give him the ball closer to the goal and set him up and create more for him in front of the goal. I guarantee he bangs goals. Like he would bang goals with them shots that he's got. But we're never going to play him there. So I don't know. It's a weird one, man. It's hard, isn't it? It's like literally just put them all in a thing and just put out a name sort of thing. But I think see, I'd have Sterling on the right. I wouldn't play him on the left for starters.
Just because of the options we have, or in general?
Just for the options that we have.
Okay. Yeah, fair.
But even in general, I'd rather play him off the right. Personally, I just think.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, but that's just my opinion. And that sounds Mount.
Mount. Okay.
Yeah. I don't like Mount on the right, but on the left, I can kind of get it to a degree. And it sounds weird, but I'd even like to see Havertz in there at some point, just with them two. Like,
See, I really don't like Havertz as a winger. I really don't.
I know,
like
but
him.
I'm saying if the formation, I mean, we're talking about the 3-4-3, and so I can't even talk about the 4. But yeah,
we'll get to the 4 after. I'll let Pice talk on the 3 first, and then we'll get to the 4. But go on. Sorry, did you want to add something to that, Jem? Before
that's me, mate. That's me on that.
Fair. See, and before I take that to Pice, my counter argument for not putting Sterling on the right is we're struggling for goals as it is. If you put Sterling on the right, yeah, he might be better creatively, but would he be good enough creatively to give? I mean, maybe Aubameyang in the middle is enough for Sterling on the right to be creative enough for us to overall get goals. But my concern is Sterling is a goal machine on the left, but not so much a goal machine on the right. And that's why I'm like, why would I take him away from the left when the biggest struggle is scoring? Do you know what I mean?
I've seen him have good games for City off the right, and it might be more from the
100%, but not as many goals.
Yeah,
he might even be better in terms of player, but we need goals, don't we?
The only reason I accommodate him there mainly is probably just to accommodate Mount. I just don't like Mount on the right. Every time I see him off the right, I don't know. It's weird. I know it's not any much more different, but I just prefer to see him off the left than the right.
I hear you. I prefer Mount in this formation. I'd rather him left than right, personally.
Yeah.
But I say that he's probably played more good games on the right. I mean, he's played more games full stop on the right, but still, he's also played a lot more good games on the right than he has on the left, if I'm honest, especially compared to it on the left in a 4-2-2. Because there on the left, he's always been absolutely diabolical, as he has been on the right, I will say. But Pice, same question to you. Now, of course, you can put Sterling back over on the left if you want to, but who would be that third attacker in that front three from the options that we have now that we're not signing Depay or any other winger or forward other than Aubameyang? What do you think?
For me, I'm not one of those people that like just picks a certain player because I like rotation. I do see Con's point. Ziyech is definitely, I mean, he definitely has, better vision than Mount, Pulisic. It's not even debatable. I mean, he can pick up passes and maybe he'll be able to pick up runs off Sterling and Aubameyang. Those split-second runs where Mount has his head down all the time. Maybe Ziyech will be able to thread those nice passes, but we all know if it's this formation, it's going to be Mount. But just thinking about it tonight, I actually feel like we might play that 4 at the back almost permanently now because I don't think this squad makes sense now with this. I feel like he's going to play a 2 up top and he's probably going to play or maybe rotate probably Havertz and Aubameyang and have maybe Mount and someone else out wide. I don't know. God help us if he plays Havertz as one of the wide attacking mids, but I just feel like he's brought Aubameyang to play 2 up top almost. Maybe then Sterling will go out on the wide and I don't know.
Probably Havertz and Broja, the other two.
Yeah, I forgot about Broja as well. Jesus Christ. Yeah, we've got a lot of strikers now. I don't know. I mean, we've got a lot of options to do things. And I guess that's what he wanted, but at the same time, we just brought in another attacker, and we can't keep the rest of them happy as it is. So someone is definitely going to be frozen out.
But say we can play this formation, and that I've got on screen now. Who would be in those positions then? Because my major concern is I don't think Mount will ever work in this formation in any of these wide positions. So that for me scratches that Mount completely. That's why I don't want us to continue this formation for too long because Mount has been in poor form, but he has still been the only guy that actually did anything useful last season. So the likelihood of him not doing that again at all is, in my opinion, quite slim. So what we should do, even if he's not the best player in the whole world, he's still important to us. Put him in a position where he's going to be good. Don't put him in a position where he's going to be just purely bad, because then what's the point in having him?
Yeah, I mean, look, let's see if we play. I was just thinking about like Zakaria. For me, he's not like I don't see him playing as like a lone 6 in like a 4-3-3, where you could then have Mount and Kovacic. I just don't see it like that.
As well,
yeah, so it's And I don't know if
Well, I mean,
Alvarez
maybe we're
was that
wrong.
either.
Maybe Zakaria surprises us, I suppose. But
Yeah,
from what I
maybe.
know
I'm
now-
just thinking of like immediately off the bat. If you played a 4-3-3, you can get Mount, Kovacic in. You put Sterling on the wing, Aubameyang up front. Then you can have that sort of.
Then you could put
the
Ziyech on the right wing and be
yeah.
a proper winger, have width. and stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. Then that makes more sense. But then I just don't think.
It just doesn't feel like Tuchel is going to go to a 4-3-3.
It doesn't seem like that, does it? I don't know. Maybe he plays like maybe like a 4-2-4 or something, where then you have, two wingers, two strikers.
This is nearly already a 4-2-4 anyway.
Yeah, I was going to say that's practically the same thing we've got anyway. So I don't really know what he's going to do, to be honest. I'm quite intrigued now with signing these two players.
There you go. But say this, it is this. Regardless of what you think Thomas Tuchel will pick, who would you pick in the two positions? Obviously, things could be very different in a month's time when different players are at different levels of form. We all know that, and people should know that watching this. But as of right now, who would you like to see in the other positions other than Aubameyang and Sterling?
Well, I mean, I'd like to see Sterling more on the left-hand side out wide, to be honest with you. But then again, I don't.
The reason why I put it this way now, rather than Sterling the left and Aubameyang on the right, is because Aubameyang is known to either play striker or left winger, and Sterling is known to play right winger.
Yeah, no, I meant more like
winger.
on one of the attacking mid positions. But then I don't think we have the greatest striker connections to play with Aubameyang. So,
and I think that keeps Sterling too far away from the goal to score regularly. And
We have to try Havertz, man. That's why you got to try Havertz in that next to Aubameyang.
If you put Sterling there and you put Havertz next to Aubameyang, but
everything we've seen with Havertz, everything we've seen of him in the two has been ours as well. So
you've got to ignore what we saw in the past and try and, because this is what I'm saying about the chemistry thing. Like, it's about the chemistry, and Aubameyang's a new player coming in, so it's got to be tried. I feel Havertz and Aubameyang, just to see if we get the
at
best
least
out
in
of it.
training, it needs to be tried. That's for sure. But is this something you'd like? Then Havertz there and put Sterling in the wide area, suppose?
I'd have Havertz, Aubameyang, Sterling, and Mount. But
see, I'm not a fan.
Or you throw, but then I can't see Mount not playing. That's the problem. And it's like, if you don't play Mount, then you play Ziyech, and then you got Ziyech, Havertz, Sterling, and Aubameyang. But then Mount's going to be playing, but he's not playing in the six, because that's, for me, it's going to be Zakaria and Kovacic. That's my opinion. But I don't know. It's hard, isn't it?
By the way, I'll just put something out there. I mean, I know Con's a big Jorginho fan. I think he'll agree with this. I think this Zakaria guy, especially because it's a loan, has just been brought in to add an extra body. I still think Jorginho is going to start. And I don't think Zakaria is going to be a starter.
I agree with this. I think Jorginho is still going to start pretty much every game when he's fit.
I agree with that as well.
Maybe Jorginho and Zakaria while Kante and Kovacic aren't fit. That is very much possible. But when everyone is fit, I think Zakaria is, if anything, not the deputy to Jorginho, but the third deputy to Kante and Kovacic, which is why I'm not sure. Like, again,
that's why I'm confused. Who is the deputy to Jorginho?
I'm just not sure if he's the player we needed. I think Zakaria is potentially a better player than Alvarez, who we were linked from with Ajax. But Alvarez just fits what I think we needed more.
Exactly, and that's what I don't get.
Rather than he's better. I don't know if he's better. I've not watched enough.
Who is Jorginho's deputy? That's what I'm saying. Like,
because we loaned Ampadu, we sold Gilmour.
Yeah.
No, I think Zakaria will be rotation for Jorginho. I don't think Jorginho will play every game. I think you'll see some rotation.
I hope you're right, and I hope Zakaria.
I think you might be right, but
with being able to do that, but I fear that that's not his position. I fear that.
I think you might be right, because Gallagher stayed as well.
Yeah.
Say again, Jen. Sorry.
He's not going to change the two, not having the 2 sixes anyway. So Zakaria is going to have to play as one of them too, and he's not going to play with Jorginho, is he? I don't see Jorginho and Zakaria being in the same team. Do you?
Oh, I do. Like, especially at Juve, Zakaria played as a box-to-box player, not as a defensive player.
Fair enough.
Like, whenever I've seen anything of Zakaria at Juve, and again, mostly highlights rather than watching games meticulously, but whenever I've seen him do anything, he got the ball in midfield, sprinted past everyone, and then all of a sudden scored. I'm like, well, that's good that you can do that, fantastic, but not what I think we were lacking most in midfield anyway. That's my only issue with him. Not that he's a bad player, just that I'm not sure about the necessity. A bit like my hesitation with Guardiola, where I'm like, he's a great player, but I just don't know if we need it. Yeah, it's a tough one. Con, if we had this front four in terms of position rather than players, who would you fill that with then? Would you have Sterling in the front two next to Aubameyang? Would you throw Havertz in next to Aubameyang? Would you throw Broja in next to Aubameyang? And who would fill then the other positions?
I wouldn't really want to see Aubameyang and Sterling both sort of going in behind. I think Kai can drop deeper and link up play a little bit better than those two can. So probably Aubameyang and Kai. But Kai's been playing so arse, man. So I honestly, I would try all three at this point. And whoever plays best next to Aubameyang, you play them there.
But do you still keep Ziyech in there instead of Mount then? Because you put Ziyech in the other teams, I assume.
Like I said, bro, I know it's not the best solution on the planet, but we need to feed these guys, man. We do. And Mount just doesn't do it. I know people say he does, but he just doesn't do it. And Ziyech, he will be the only one in his team who I will have confidence in. If you give him a run of games, he will create chances for those guys. I don't think anybody else in this attack can do that consistently anyway.
If, by the way, it is Sterling on the left, then I think it needs to be like this, because then, like Con just said, Havertz can drop, then Sterling can go and Aubameyang can go. If Aubameyang is over here and then they both go, like here, and then we have two over on the left and no one on the right, that doesn't work. So then I think we need to shift it around the front two. But I hear it now, and everyone's going to laugh at me now, but I don't care what you people think. In this formation, I think the best player to play here, Ruben Loftus-Cheek. It's the only player I've seen play in this position.
That's a show. I mean, he's the only powerful runner down the right. So.
Well in that position.
He's the only powerful runner we have down that right-hand side that's actually proved something to us. So,
other than Reece, obviously, but we need him elsewhere.
The thing that I worry about with him in there, in advanced positions, is I think, it happened against Southampton as well. Like, I don't think he releases the ball at the right time. I think
I agree.
Like, I think he's even worse.
I know means am I saying Ruben is perfect.
Yeah, no, I'm not. Yeah.
See, with Ruben, if he plays in this team, I always want to see him further up the pitch. I feel that's where he's at his best. I don't want to see him in a six. It just ruins his game completely. He needs to be able to focus more going the other way than having to, not to completely forget his defensive duties, but not have to do as much of it, if you know what I mean. His understanding of his role, I feel, is better when he's further up the pitch and he's able to just pick the ball up in pockets and be the Ruben that we've seen.
But also not be too high, because then he can't make his run. So it's got to be that mix of not too high, but not too deep. I agree with you completely. I agree with you completely. Jem, I know you need to go. We're about to round this out anyways. But Jem, appreciate you very much for being here. Everybody go subscribe to GNA TV. The link is down in the description. Jem, appreciate you very much, and I'll chat to you soon, bro.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone, man. And take care, guys. See you later.
Cheers. Take care. So, boys, the last couple of things that I want to get through before we finish this off. Pice, and then I'll ask Con's opinions on it after. All the outgoings. Now, someone in the chat said earlier, Michy to Forest is off. Is that true? Have you heard that, Pice? I haven't heard it.
I've seen that, yeah. I mean, the window's slammed shut now. We've not really had... This is where the nervous bit comes in. We want these deals confirmed that they're fully done. I mean,
obviously, you have like this extra 2 hours for like certain things to be, everything will be fine.
Yeah, if you get a deal sheet in, I think, I don't know this source here, footy writer Christian Stewart said, hearing and just got a message to say Chelsea filed for an hour extension with the FA. Aubameyang has cited traffic delay as reason. So I don't know if that's true, but yeah.
I guess potentially, but fair enough. I mean, I don't even know what to say. What? Just get it done. Traffic delays. Get a helicopter if you need to, for flip's sake. Like, what is this? Traffic delay. Well, we've had a record spending transfer window, and we're worrying about traffic. What is this? But yeah, I'll be pretty confident. I mean, let's see if Michy goes through. But okay, we've got Billy going. Ampadu is going to La Spezia in the Serie A on loan, no buy option. Michy Batshuayi is probably going to have his contract terminated and go to Forest if it happens. Christian Stewart is a weird guy. Like, I have no problem with him. I like him. But he used to be more of a journalist. Then he became like an agent. He's like an agent of Instagram influencers now. But also apparently still tweets about transfer news. I'm a little bit confused. But anyway, Christian, fair play. And then we have, what other outgoings do we have? We had a fair few. Harvey Vale went to Hull City after extending his contract, then went to Hull City on loan. Dujon Sterling went to Stoke. Am I missing one? I feel like I'm missing loads.
Who? What is this?
Just outgoings. Am I missing one?
Oh, I've done a list, but I've already got comments saying you've missed this, and this. So I've got Werner, Emerson, Lukaku, Sarr, Gilmour, Alonso,
Did you
Barkley.
tweet it or where's this list?
Yeah, I tweeted it, but I've already forgot Hudson-Odoi on that list somehow,
Okay.
and I already forgot.
I meant, to be honest, I meant more outgoings just today, but yeah, go on.
Yeah, I mean, Harvey Vale has signed a 3-year contract extension. He went to Hull on loan, and yeah, I think who was you just mentioning?
Ampadu.
Yeah, he's gone to Spezia, I think, something like that.
Spezia,
Yeah,
Batshuayi could potentially still go to Forest, I
maybe.
guess.
Maybe. I think people are saying it's off, but I'm not 100%. I mean, who cares anyway? He'll get his contract terminated. So
There you go. I mean, Xavier Simmons. Jonathan Kinross in the chat mentioned it. Xavier Simmons seems to be. I know he extended his contract and then left on loan. I don't know where to though. But Dujon Sterling went to Stoke. I read that earlier. A lot of outgoings. Now, let's quickly, and let's assume we get Aubameyang. Let's assume Zakaria is all done. To summarize the transfer window, we've had a lot of ins, a lot of outs. The most happy I'm probably about Lukaku being gone, Werner being gone, Emerson being gone, Alonso being gone. And I forget, it's one of the big ones that got gone. See, of the forwards, probably. Well, I mean, Hudson only left on loan, and they don't have a. Simmons is to Hull as well. There you go. I don't know. Like Hudson only went on loan with no option to buy, but still, out of the potentially leaving wingers. Oh yeah, Kennedy is leaving to I forget the team, but signed a permanent contract. Barkley left, contract terminated. But Hudson-Odoi would probably be I don't know if he would have been the last one or if Pulisic would have been the last one, but probably maybe the last one of the 3 wingers that we have to leave. And he's the one that left, and Pulisic and Ziyech are still here. This is a little bit confusing, but I'm still happy with a lot of these outgoings. I'm happy with Koulibaly. I'm happy with Fofana. I'm happy with Cucurella. I'm happy with Sterling. I'm on the fence about Aubameyang, and I'll give Zakaria a chance, but I'm on the fence about Zakaria as well. Pice, what's your resume of the transfer window now that it's basically shut and we assume that these deals are gone through?
I said this on Gem's stream earlier. I'm very, very, very happy with the defensive signings. I think they're all really, really good. I don't know. There's that little bit of a spark missing going forward, I think, in terms of like an extra winger or I don't know. I guess the huge name is Fofana.
Tweeted, Michy Batshuayi's move to Nottingham Forest is off.
Yeah, I'm happy with it. I just think obviously we're not quite there yet, and I think we have signed quite a lot of players. What, 5 or 6? So I'm happy. I didn't think we'd get these names in this window. I was a bit uncertain as to what to expect, but I think we've ended up with a good team. I just think obviously, you know, there's still more to add. Look, we still need, I don't know, another world-class midfielder next summer. I think Kante's probably going to go. And then we need more attackers. That I'm surprised Ziyech hasn't gone somewhere, whether it be AC Milan or obviously Ajax got Ocampos, and Pulisic as well. I'm surprised we denied him a loan move. I really, really am surprised with that, considering how much
unless United was the only loan offer, then I'm not surprised.
I don't know. There was reports saying we just denied him a loan move, like full stop, and I'm surprised at that. Maybe because we
didn't get anyone else in.
I'm just baffled. We didn't have more. Like, you know what I mean? We heard a little bit about Zaha. Like, I'm baffled we didn't go for that earlier on in the window. Yeah. Like, I'm baffled we went for Gordon
today,
so much.
Like, we tried for Depay today, apparently. So why not try for Zaha?
I just don't quite understand it. But especially because how pissed off he gets with like these wingers. So, and just the forwards in general. I'm surprised we didn't target that area more. But look, it was very clear we needed 2 centre backs, and to end up who we have, like Fofana for me is just. I can't believe how we've got him out of Leicester. I won't know, but yeah, I think him pushing is just and then being in a financial mess. We've got a bit sort of lucky with the timing, and let's see what next summer brings. I mean, yeah, we'll probably go for more attackers next summer, I guess, in a midfield. I'm probably guessing, but yeah.
Going to be interesting between now and next summer what happens with the contracts of Jorginho and Kante. Does one of them get an extension? Do neither of them get an extension? Do both of them get an extension? It's going to be very interesting. Kondo, your resume of the transfer window. Happy with a lot of the outgoings? Happy with the incomings, but disappointed that there's not more, potentially?
If this was a normal window, I'd be a bit disappointed with the incomings. I thought there were some areas we kind of neglected a little bit. But in just the general, like we was months behind, you know, our board left in the summer. It's been on Tuchel and Boehly. You can't really complain, mate. And the outgoings have been amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I was going to say
Is
the
there
outgoing.
anyone
He's
that
done
hasn't
well.
left that you would have liked to leave? Sorry, Pies.
Oh no, I think you're cutting in and out a little bit. I was just going to say I was just impressed with the outgoings as well. Aubameyang has officially, not Aubameyang, Alonso has officially left Chelsea, so hopefully Aubameyang soon.
Soon, and if you think about it, like before this window started, right, we had Emerson and Alonso on our books. For the life of me, I didn't think we'd get rid of both in one window, but we did, and that's massive to me. Like, and we get Cucurella in, like, for the position Boehly and Tuchel were in, I think you'd have to be a very ungrateful or really not that much of an understanding person to think they haven't done relatively well. And this is like a one-of-a-kind transfer window. Next summer, we'll have a director of football, fingers crossed, and things will be a bit different. Our manager who wants to be a coach.
About that, bro.
Yeah, exactly. Our manager who just wants to coach the players can just coach the players. You know, actually scout proper players that fit what we want to build. I think the best thing about this window for me is that defense now looks like it's brilliant. You got Koulibaly in, he's got that experience. He's world class, in my opinion. You got Fofana now. He's going to be one of the best defenders in the next 3 or 4 years in world football. You got Cucurella, that's a brilliant sort of backup. Maybe we could have got Reece James back up there, but I don't mind Loftus at right wing back in the back three. You know, I don't mind that at all.
No,
so you know, so like I think they did. I think they did well, man, considering what situation I was left in. And bear in mind, we had to replace 2 of our Champions League winning defenders as well. You can't forget that. They had the Lukaku situation to deal with from early on. Like, I think they did really well, if I'm being honest. Yeah, I think they did really well. I'm going to be real.
Is this true? If this is true, flip side.
Well, there was one source in Barca saying that she is very reliable, but I mean, yeah, there was literally only her saying that. But I mean, yeah,
there you go. There you go. I mean, I think we've done well. I personally, I mean, there's some people that say, well, Boehly could have done things better. I personally don't think that Boehly could have done anything much better. Now, of course, would it have been ideal if we had a new owner that knew everything about football already? Then he could have done things slightly differently, potentially slightly better. But with his starting point, I think he's done very well. The guy that I don't think did everything perfectly this summer is Thomas Tuchel. Now, is some of it harsh because he had responsibilities that, number one, he wasn't used to. Number two, he wasn't potentially prepared for. And number three, he might not just be that good at. You know, we know he's a very good coach, but maybe he's just not very good at, you know, talent ID and picking players he wants and picking players he doesn't want and the transfer market as a whole. Maybe. But the biggest thing, I think, and three I'm going to mention now. Number one, how much time we wasted on Koundé? Ridiculous. Just because everything took long. And I understand Fofana maybe wasn't really possible early in the window anyway, but still,
just clear on that, bro.
To sign different players. Do you know what I
No,
mean?
just clear on that. Sorry, let me interrupt you, but I was on Gem's stream earlier. Ben Jacobs come on, and he said one of the reasons why Chelsea might have pushed so late for Fofana is because the previous entourage at Chelsea said that deal wasn't attainable this summer.
I heard that. And that's why I understand it. But still, don't waste time on Koundé, but sign Aubameyang already. Sign a striker already. Sign a winger, which we now didn't get. Sign a midfielder, on which we now had to do a afternoon deadline day bid for Zakaria. Like, those things could have been done earlier. And that's the next thing I want to get to. I think we should have tried to figure out the midfield situation much earlier. Again, I don't know if this is necessarily quite the case, but it feels like we've only come to the idea maybe we need a midfielder after either Ruben got injured or because we were so bad against Southampton. Maybe a combination of the two. But that seems like not good. Like you shouldn't after 5 games of the season only figure out, oh, maybe we need a DM. Like you shouldn't. That is not ideal. And yeah, I'm not a fan of that. And I think we need, like, if we're going to let Hudson-Odoi go, the most creative of the wingers we have, because he's a real winger and Ziyech isn't a real winger, that's why I'm saying that. Then probably the most, like, Hudson-Odoi has loads of flaws, especially finishing. But one thing he is, especially off the right, is creative, right? Like in terms of creating chances. And he's the guy we let go. And we didn't get anyone else in that position, which, well, of course, Sterling, but in terms of the right, which I personally just don't understand. So those 3 things on certain players that we just wasted too much time, that we didn't get a midfielder, and that we didn't get a winger. Like, I'm very happy with Cucurella, but I think Emerson, I've always picked Emerson above Alonso. I know other people disagree. But for me, Emerson instead of Cucurella would have been not as bad as not having a proper midfield, a proper DM in the squad, and not having a new right winger. I think it would have been better to not have Cucurella, but sign one of those 2 instead. Even though I'm happy with Cucurella, like reiterate that. I'm just saying in terms of priorities, that's why I don't think we put our priorities quite right this summer. But on the guys that we actually did sign, other than Aubameyang and Zakaria, I'm very, very happy with that. And the other 2, we'll just have to wait and see. I mean, Pies, do you agree? Or, conscious, I'm muted.
So, yeah, can I just make a good point? Like, the reason I sympathise with Tuchel so much, because he just came off a season where we got sanctioned and we had to play 63 games. And then in the summer, you're asking him to sort of do a role of like a director of football. Like, I really do sympathise with him because he might be an elite tactician. Some managers do, bro. Some managers don't. He's an elite tactician and he was put in a position he didn't want to be in first and foremost. And, bro, back of that season we had where, like, the sanctions, like, no idea what was going behind the scenes there. We only saw glimpses of it from the media, but we have no idea truly how draining that was for everybody involved. And then after 63 games in the season, I think the most played from any team, you're asking him to do that. Like, I sympathise with him a lot. Like, if he wasn't keen on Depay, he probably hasn't really watched Depay often. So
can I say something, Kondo, on the basis of that? And understand what you just said in terms of how many times he watched Depay, that's a fair point. But if he's such a great tactician as you say, and I probably agree with it still, then I don't understand how he didn't figure out that we needed the end. That's the part I don't understand. You know what I mean? Because I agree he's not a director of football. He shouldn't be the guy having to pick all the players. But he's still a manager and a coach that should know if he needs a DM or not. And the fact that he realized 2 days before the end of the transfer window, that's questionable.
To be fair, bro, no, you're right. I can't defend him on that, but he's human at the end of the day. We all make mistakes, you know?
Yeah, that's fair.
It's what it is. And at least we got somebody.
Mount when he makes a mistake, so.
But that's the thing, because we're in like a rebuild now. This isn't an overnight fix. This isn't a one-window fix. So he's recognised that problem, and we've got somewhat of a stopgap. If he performs, we might well pay that money in the future. Who knows? But he's recognised that problem now, and now going forward, you know, we'll be addressing that with world-class quality, I presume, because I was watching Fabrizio's stream before I fell asleep, and he said that Chelsea weren't looking to panic buy. They only wanted top-quality players. And that fills me with assurances because he's recognised...
If they think of Zakaria that way, that makes me more at ease. If it's not like who's available on the last day? If that's not the situation, more positive. But
honestly, if I think it was a panic buy, I think we would have gone for that guy from Villa. That Douglas guy from...
Although, have you ever seen Zakaria score a direct corner?
He scored like 4 of those, by the way. He's known for that.
That is mental. Like that's
corner.
Exactly,
I think
we should have signed him just for the corners, just for that.
And do you know what a screen panic buy as well?
Just for that.
Do you know what a screen panic buy as well? Signing Telemans for 25 mil. That would have been a panic buy.
By the way, I want you guys to have a little bit of a game with me.
Hey, let's go.
Because I have no idea who he's on about. So Fabrizio said on Twitch, and he DM'd me saying, "Go on, have a guess." So he said on Twitch that before Zakaria today, right, Chelsea bid £50 million for a so-called crazy midfielder. He is not in a Champions League club, and he said it's impossible to guess. It's not Ruben Neves. He said it's someone you will never, ever guess. So chat as well, get involved. £50 million midfielder today we bidded. He said the club, it was immediately rejected because the club wanted to keep him. It wasn't a it wasn't a Champions League club. He said, you'll never guess. And I'm sitting here thinking, who the hell is that? £50 million.
My guess would be Sangare, but then he surely would never say you would.
Yeah,
never guess
he was
that
like,
because
it
we
was
have
like
to
you
link
won't
with it.
you won't guess it. He was like, you won't
Yeah.
guess this midfielder Chelsea bid for. I was thinking, what? Is he on
Someone
something?
said Odegaard just because they're not in the Champions League. That's funny.
I was thinking like Ward Prowse, but then he isn't like a defensive midfielder or something, you know. So
No.
I don't know.
I mean,
It's
we
weird.
should have maybe signed him when they signed him in January, but I doubt we made an offer for that. Now, maybe Milinkovic-Savic, but wouldn't he be
Nah,
too easy to
people
guess
would
then?
guess him. Yeah, he was
Yeah.
like, it's someone you'll never guess. It's like what? I had no idea.
Fred. Maybe it was Fred.
He said he's going to reveal it after the window. It's going to be someone so random.
All right,
or it's going
window's
to be
shut.
someone
Come on then,
unreal.
Fabrizio.
Yeah, but
Top.
someone
I mean,
put Xhaka.
Tony from Mönchengladbach? I don't know. Never even heard of him in my life.
He was rumoured to be with Liverpool though, so I just feel like I shouldn't have started
But he's
this off.
shit these days, so.
Chelsea just tweeted Kennedy's gone on a permanent finally.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah. With Real Valladolid. I don't even know if they're in the first or second Spanish division these days, but, good luck to it. But stop saying Madison. We're not talking about Madison. We're talking about central midfielders here, not Madison. And Wilshere, the guy retired. We offered 50 million for him. That'd be quite funny.
Indeed, he's a
It's
shout,
difficult.
to be fair, but I feel like Leicester would have accepted that.
Yeah. I mean, I remember a few weeks ago when you were putting in the chat, indeed he's shit now. Then I'm like, yeah, he is.
No, it's not. It's not
Mark
never.
Noble.
said the
Maybe
chat,
we just
someone
bid
said that.
50 million for Declan Rice, and we're like, do you want to send him for 50 million by any chance?
Deadline day is 50 mil. It was
I don't
Weigl. No, we've got brains. He's like 5-10 mil.
What about
Yeah.
that French guy from Lyon? What's his name?
Kakare, is it?
Yeah, Kakare. Yeah.
He's like a really creative midfielder, though. I don't know. To be fair, he didn't
He-
say whether it was a DM or he just said midfielder. So
Yeah.
I'm just trying to
Dunno.
think who would command a fee like that who's not in Champions League. That's
yeah,
what
and he said it. He said it was immediately rejected as well. So it was probably below their valuation. He said the club wanted to keep him, and I was thinking, what the fuck? Who the hell? I'm really intrigued.
Yeah, I want to say if
really
he-
tricky.
I can't even
that
think
was
of anyone that would fit that description,
it's
Innit?
hard.
He's got
Other than
me on
Milinkovic-Savic.
strings.
Milinkovic-Savic is probably the only one that would somewhat make sense.
Yeah.
But I
They
guarantee
might
when
want
he
more
says
than
it,
50 million.
when he says it, we'll all be like, "Oh, of course." I guarantee.
Yeah,
it.
it'll be
true,
someone
yeah,
really
yeah.
obvious. But then
Yeah.
why say it's impossible to guess? Like he messaged me
Very
saying you won't guess it. I was like, right.
It's very strange. It's very strange.
Yeah.
Right, boys. 2 hours 18 for me. Obviously not quite the same for you, but still. Well, Con, to be fair, he was here very soon after we started. I just didn't bring him in until I brought you and Pies in. But I think we're going to round this one out. I'm very confident that we're going to announce Aubameyang and Zakaria in the next couple of hours and hopefully get that done. And then, well, we'll go tomorrow. I'll probably see you guys tomorrow for, well, not probably, I will, for West Ham preview anyway, when we will then hopefully have these guys announced and realize, shit, they can't actually play because, well, they could, but they won't. So that's another depressing situation because we have to do another game without signings. I mean, Fofana will maybe at least play, so that won't be possible. And stop saying Casemiro, Jonathan. You already left clubs. Pascal Gross sounds like a Thomas Tuchel thing to do. Maybe.
Well,
50 million instant rejected. Though, I don't know. Is that price tag was like?
Oh yeah, I can't lie. Someone said Souček. That's actually a shout. To be fair, that's a shout because he's a DM. But
Check.
yeah, that's the best shout so far. Fair
No, yeah,
play.
That's a good
100%.
shout.
That's the best one. Yeah.
He's a good shout. I personally think Pascal Gross is also a good shout, just because Brighton asked 62 million for Cucurella with add-ons.
That's
So
true.
why wouldn't they
Yeah.
turn down, like, Pascal Gross is their talisman at the moment, so wouldn't be surprised if they turned 50 million down for him, if I'm honest, but who knows? Who knows? Right, boys, we're going to round this one out. Appreciate you both for coming on. Big shout out to all the other previous guests, Rob, Charlie, Jem, Alex, follow all of these guys. Links are all down in the description, as well as Pices and Con's Twitter, as well as Pices' website, chelseafc365.com. But yeah, the transfer window has shut. We haven't announced the signings yet, but the transfer window is shut. Finally, enough with this. Now we can focus on extending some contracts and getting a director of football. Next on the agenda, no sleep for you, Todd Boehly. You can sleep once we have a director of football. After that, you can take a rest. Before that, I want to hear none about it. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys for watching. If you're still here, I swear I've only told, in 2 hours 20, I've only told you once to subscribe. So if you're still here, please do subscribe. And I very much appreciate it because if you subscribe now, if you're still here, you're a real G. But chances are most of you are already subscribed if you're still here now. But anyway, subscribe if you haven't. Smash the like button on your way out. Follow all the guys down in the description below. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. Up the Chelsea, upwards and onwards. And I'll see you next time.